So we'll have to be tracking this, but you're going to want to be with us throughout the entire show today. I think if you come for the king, you better kill him. And I'm not sure they got it all. I'm not sure they got all the votes. So some Central Committee members telling me that the votes aren't there for this. So we'll talk to Ted. Yeah. We'll talk to Ted in the 9 o'clock hour. In a second, we're going to get to Chris Murray with an update on these Biden law or the Hunter Biden case and whether or not he's going to be found guilty. Could we live in a world where Donald Trump is found guilty of business records fraud and Hunter Biden walks on a crack cocaine gun purchase? We'll have a great conversation with Chris Murray in a second. I'm also going to ask him about these Alito tapes. Is this wrong for the U.S. Supreme Court justice to say we need to return this nation once again to a place of godliness? Is that affecting his rulings at the U.S. Supreme Court? So we'll be covering that with Chris Murray in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 58 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Colorado taking action to supposedly keep elections safe and secure. Governor Polis signed an executive order Monday activating the state's National Guard cyber team. 4 to 6 members will help with election cybersecurity defense efforts during the primary on June 25th. This will start 1 week from today and continue for up to 30 days.
Why do you need to have cybersecurity protection if the ballot counting devices aren't connected to the internet?
Yeah, great question. I was thinking about that myself. I have no idea.
What are those guys going to do on election night?
Once again, it comes back, for me, it comes back to, I know Billy doesn't like this, but one day and the holiday, I don't care, everybody's out of school, everybody's out of work, and you physically see a human being go into the booth. And that's, to me, that's the only way to correct all this. And to be certain, I think.
Chris, you did a bunch of election night stuff. Chris Murray with First and 14th joining us. Why would you need cybersecurity specialists to protect you from hacking if the devices themselves aren't plugged into the internet?
Well, so there's a good reason and there's a bad reason. The short answer is the bad reason would be if the devices are connected to the internet. The good reason would be if your online reporting portal that shows the results that they feed to news organizations, that has to be connected to the internet.
Right.
And actually, in my experience, what most secretaries of state are worried about, including here in Colorado, under both Wayne Williams and Janet Griswold, what they're concerned about is somebody hacking their reporting system, the stuff that feeds the information out that says who won or lost. Because you have to admit, if they say, oh, no, wait, we got hacked, the result is totally different, that's not going to help confidence in the results anyway, even if the people counting the ballots did everything right.
Oh, that was awesome.
There you go. Solve that. Yeah, it's fun to have smart friends.
Chris needs to show up every morning at 6 o'clock. And then we could just
solve all the problems.
Things out. Yep, iron it all out. Thank you, Chris. Gun dealers across Colorado are now required to have a state permit to sell. This is on top of the federal license. Governor Polis signed the bill into law, which also allows for employees to complete background checks every 3 years, along with theft prevention training. The UN Security Council is approving a U.S. drafted ceasefire deal aimed at stopping the fighting between Israel and Hamas. Officials say Israel has accepted the proposal that would require the release of some hostages held by Hamas in exchange for a six-week ceasefire. Hamas has yet to respond. What a shocker there. Political analyst Abib Redagor on with Hugh this morning and says that Bibi and Netanyahu must focus on his country and the war.
America's given us a lot. I don't need America to fight for us. There's one part of this war, and it is the big part, and it is the part America has a desperate interest in, that America is refusing to fight, and that's Iran. You don't need boots on the ground. You need massive sanctions, massive pressure at every turn. You need clever people in the Treasury. You need clever people at state doing nothing morning, day, and night but trying to figure out ways to hurt the Iranian regime. And you need it now, and you need it for the next.
Back here at home, President Biden making a speech at the White House last night, early Juneteenth celebration, and his delivery continues to worsen.
Freedom's making it harder for black people to vote or have your vote counted. Closing doors of opportunity, attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you can believe it, banning books about black experiences.
Oh, yeah.
So long as this was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Let's see, I'll play
so
it
long
again.
as this was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
It
What?
was really bad.
I can't understand anything he just said.
You know what? As these reports continue to come out, I mean, these are the organizations that lean to the left, and they are starting to talk about him. I just, once again, I have a hard time believing that he's going to be the candidate. I'm just convinced. And then you go to Kamala and all that stuff. I think they're going to scrap the whole thing. I do.
There was was it 538? Was that polling company came out with an analysis of Joe Biden yesterday compared to all of the other presidents going back to Truman on where he stands at this point in his presidency when it comes to approval rating. He's below everybody, with the exception of two people, Jimmy Carter and H.W. Bush at this point in his presidency. He's pretty much right in line with where those guys are. He's a little bit above those two, but everybody else outperformed him. Even Donald Trump at this point in his presidency had a higher approval rating than Joe Biden. I mean, it's so low that Tanya Harding is like, Joe, get a grip here. You got to get a better approval rating. But it's pretty bad, bud.
Yeah, it is. It is. I just I find it hard to believe that he's going to be, the nominee, the candidate for the Democratic Party. But who knows what's going to happen in the next month? So I say no, he's not going to be in there, and I don't think Kamala is either. So we shall see.
It would be a heck of a shift if they went in. I don't know, Chris. You've done any convention stuff? We're picking your brain on whole lots of things today, but.
Why not?
I think it would be the smartest move because you have two incredibly unpopular nominees at this point. And imagine if Republicans at this point, and I like Donald Trump a lot, but imagine if Republicans came out and were like, we're going to switch to Ron DeSantis at this point. You might end up with a clear victory on the Republican side. And if the Democrats did something, they could win too.
Well, and that's I think fans of Joe Biden and fans of Donald Trump can probably both acknowledge that the best opponent either one of them could have is the other guy, right?
Yeah.
So if the Democrats make a switch to somebody who's essentially, somebody who's becoming senile in public, then I think their chances against Donald Trump go way up, right? If for whatever reason the Republican Party were to move off from Donald Trump, I think their chances against Joe Biden would go way up. And that's not a knock on Donald Trump. That's just reflected in the polling. America's kind of hungry for somebody fresh. Can the convention do it? The Democratic convention? Absolutely. Democratic convention is free to nominate whoever they want. State laws try to bind what those delegates have to do. The Supreme Court has said basically trying to prosecute somebody for violating one of those oaths, you can't do it. So if Joe Biden were to drop out, none of those state laws would apply. The convention could nominate whoever it wants.
I could see that happening. No doubt. We will find out soon. It's going to be a wild summer. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Rocks shutout by the Twins last night, 5-0. Nikola Jokic will play for Serbia's Olympic team again. this year. The Broncos 3-day mini camp starts today. NBA Finals continue tomorrow. Celtics lead 2-0, and the Panthers lead the Oil 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals. 55 in Inglewood, 54 in Broomfield, 58 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue with Chris on Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Good chance for thunderstorms again today. Partly to mostly cloudy, highs 80. Some thunderstorms could be strong to severe through evening. Lows tonight, upper 50s and lows 60s. Partly sunny Tuesday, highs 80s. Not as many thunderstorms, but a few. Mostly sunny and dry, warm. Low to mid-90s Wednesday, Thursday, upper 80s Friday. Friday and Saturday afternoon and evening thunderstorms return. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Hunter Biden returned to his federal gun crime trial in Delaware on Monday. The prosecution and defense teams gave their closing arguments ahead of jury deliberations. Hunter faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison if he is convicted on all three counts against him. Fox News reporting First Son's charges arose from a 2018 purchase of a firearm allegedly made while he was addicted to crack. Joining us in studio is Chris Murray. He's a partner with First and 14th Law. He's given an analysis on these cases because that's where we are in America. It's court TV time for your political opponents. Chris, give us a sense on this case. How serious is it, and is he likely to be convicted?
I think it's so. I think it is very serious. Unlike the charges against President Trump in New York. The charges against Hunter Biden are sort of straight down the middle for a federal prosecution. You can't possess a firearm when you're already committing another felony, right? So like doing loads of crack cocaine.
But his argument is, yes, I was addicted before, and yes, I was addicted after, but during the time I purchased the gun, I was not addicted.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that is, remember the laptop, right, which is now completely real. That the FBI has confirmed that that's real. That was Hunter Biden's laptop, and I don't think I've never seen. I don't think anybody's ever seen somebody who enjoyed taking as many pictures of himself doing hard drugs.
Have you actually looked at some? I've looked at maybe a handful of pictures, but. Yeah.
That's all I needed. I mean, how many pictures with a crack pipe in a bathtub do you need to see, Jeff? I'm sorry. So and frankly, that's leaving aside the sort of sad levity of that, right? That's the case the prosecutors made. The prosecution in their closing argument yesterday said, "Hey, look, this is sad." I mean, and by the way, like people can forget Hunter Biden's a human being too, right? I mean, yes, he's the president's son. Yes, he's behaved in all sorts of reprehensible ways. Yes, he may have been part of a influence peddling operation, in our federal government, but he's still a human being, right? I mean, this is sad stuff to see somebody spiral like this. And prosecutors said, look, we had to present all of this really damning evidence of his drug addiction, right, and his personal depravity because we had to show you that he was addicted to drugs the whole time, and he can't have been buying a firearm during this time. I think the evidence there is overwhelming, and I think if the jury looks at it objectively, he's going to be convicted.
What's the penalty for this?
That he's not going to jail for 25 years, Jeff.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if it's some sort of house arrest.
Yeah, hangs around. I mean, it doesn't Donald Trump have to face house arrest possibly too?
Yep. And and to be clear, like, I think what Hunter Biden is accused of is actually between the two, it's more serious, right? As far as federal charges go, this is relatively minor, but it is a federal crime. It's prosecuted all the time, and I would say that if he gets jail time, maybe a year.
Would you blame Joe Biden for pardoning his own son?
On a personal level, I would not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I don't think. Frankly, I think the fact that he's come out and said I won't pardon him, I don't get that as a father. I mean, there's all sorts of things to blame Joe Biden for. Pardoning his son for this wouldn't even make my top 100 things to blame Joe Biden for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Billy. How do you feel about that? Would you put your son away, or at least allow him to be put away if you had the power?
Again, it's different based on what the political climate is. And the political climate right now is that Joe Biden has weaponized the Department of Justice against Donald Trump. It's not true, but that's the political climate. And so now Joe Biden is stuck with the idea that his weaponized Department of Justice is prosecuting his own son, which really, really, really super hurts the narrative. Because again, if he was weaponizing it, why would he go after his son? But he can't, because he can't pardon him, because if he does, it'll be, oh, look, the Bidens get away with doing all their crimes all the time, and they live by different rules. It just, oh my gosh. And there's going to be so much hand-wringing and pearl clutching and falling on a fainting couch, despite the fact that Donald Trump commuted the sentence of quite a number of people that were convicted for more serious crimes than this during his last term. And those were people that, I don't know, worked on his freaking campaign. So, again,
I mean, we got to spend some time looking at this. You have that power as president.
Yeah,
so that's where I mean, there were a whole lots of things about, didn't Bill Clinton pardon a whole bunch of people at the last hour, including people that.
But I guess the bottom line question is, if you are president, does that mean the members of your family should not be held accountable for crimes? Because if you are the president and you have the ability to pardon, and you say, well, and I understand the emotional side of wanting to as a father, but when I take that oath and I'm president, I would want to pardon my son, but I wouldn't. Because, again, I have to faithfully execute the laws of the country. I can't bend them because my family members committed a crime. And that would be the first argument that would be made, even though everybody's like, oh, it's sympathetic. Horse crap. The first thing that would happen after he pardoned him would be, oh, my God, look, you didn't ever hold him accountable. And everybody run around and we get fainting couches and the smelling salts. And, oh, the country's going in places it never has been, even though nobody pays attention who's pardoned anyway. So, again, this is it. I'm just at a point where what will it do? And potentially, Donald Trump is not going to be spending time either in house arrest or any sort of confinement anytime soon. What does it say if Hunter Biden does before him? What does that do to the narrative of the weaponization of the Department of Justice? What does that do? And the reason it's a problem is because you have convinced the Republican voters this is happening. You haven't convinced the rest of the people it's happening. And that's going to be a problem.
Well, and Bill, I think to your point there, that's why if I were Hunter Biden, I'd be very worried about what's about to happen. Because I think you just laid out the best case for why he spent some time in jail.
Oh, yeah, I think he does, too. I think he spends time in jail. I think absolutely because just like, and again, I wasn't convinced that Trump was going to be found guilty until I heard about how the prosecution walked the jury through the charges at the tail end. They basically connected all the dots, and there was nothing that the defense could do to break that sequence of events. And while we didn't agree with it, they went, this is A, this is B, this is C, and this is why it's a felony. And the defense had bupkis as far as pushing back on that. And the same thing here. There is really no defense for Hunter Biden doing this. The only thing he's got is sympathy. It's all he's got, because by the letter of the law, he violated it 110%, especially because he found a little cocaine on the gun. Right?
Now let me ask you this scenario.
Yeah.
He walks. Hunter Biden. So you laid out the if he gets charged or if he gets convicted and punished, then the whole narrative of weaponizing the DOJ and all that stuff falls apart. If he walks and Trump is convicted on business record falsification, does that strengthen the argument from the conservative side that this system's rigged?
No, not necessarily, because the argument that the system is rigged is bogus to begin with. But what it will allow is allow everybody that believes it already to come to a conclusion that it is fixed, despite the fact that this involves juries. That's the really fun part about this, is that somehow the weaponization of the Department of Justice was able to manipulate the jury process. And the problem with that is this: you are now going to have most of a political party that will invalidate not only our election systems, but also our judiciary.
Do you think that comes from the right?
Yes.
In that scenario,
yes.
I think it comes from the left, because you can show that where the case is prosecuted makes a difference onto whether or not somebody's found guilty or not.
Okay, hang on a sec. That is not new information. That's information that Chris has known for 3 decades. Yeah. Where you prosecute the crime impacts whether or not you're likely to.
I don't think I'm quite as old as you think I am, Bill. But
but again, since you started in law school, since you just started out of this, that is one of the truisms that where something is prosecuted does increase or decrease likelihood of conviction. That is a constant that is not new under Biden.
But then the argument that the judicial system is fair and impartial just isn't the case.
I disagree with that. Why would it not be fair and impartial?
Because it is based upon where you prosecute the crime.
No, not necessarily. And here's the idea.
I'll throw something in there for you guys to consider, though, which is, Jeff, I'll say that it should in a federal system, right? So, I think most conservatives, right, we actually want states to have more authority, right, and the federal government to have less. Obviously, this is a federal court in Delaware, but what is one of the sort of compromises in the federal court system? One of the checks on federal authority in the federal court system, that your jury pool is still drawn from that state, from that district, right? And I actually think that a jury, there's nothing inherently offensive to me about the difference between a jury in New York and a jury in Mississippi, or a jury in Colorado and a jury in Delaware, right? I think the juries are supposed to reflect the peers of somebody locally. I think the place where it starts looking different is when you've got these national sort of figures and celebrities like Donald Trump, for example, where, that does stink, that a jury in New York is going to maybe have a very different idea of Donald Trump than a jury in Alaska. Or a jury in Delaware is going to have a very different idea of Hunter Biden than a jury in Georgia. Right.
But you could say that about a Denver Bronco or a Dallas Cowboy.
Totally.
I mean, you get a Dallas Cowboy that's accused of a charge in Philadelphia. Dude's going to go to the electric chair. It doesn't matter if it's jaywalking. They are going to kill him on purpose because they hate him. So, that's not new.
That's so I think in general, for most people, the fact that a jury in their home state is going to look different than a jury in a state that they do nothing else in, that's a feature. That's not a bug.
Yeah.
I think for a tiny segment of the population, right, who people all over the country know about or have to know about and form an opinion about without really living around them, that's the place where it gets hard. But I don't think you want to have national federal juries.
No.
But
and you got to charge where the crime committed to, because there's an inherent fairness there of allowing the pool of individuals that live in that community to then be the arbiters of the justice. And so the idea you take it out and then say, well, because the jury in New York won't agree with something a jury in Arkansas will do that won't agree with a jury in Alaska do, so nothing's fair. That's not how the jury system works. It can't just be because they get different verdicts all the time that it's somehow there's this inherent bias. It's not true.
No, the concern I have, though, is that we're unleashing particularly attorney generals in states and maybe others, that the minute that a president is now done with office, an Alabama DA or somebody finds something they want to prosecute Joe Biden on, feels like they're going to get a conviction in Alabama versus New York, and you kind of unleash the legal system in states that are unfriendly to a particular national presidential or political figure to try to bring charges in order to go after
He would
him.
have to do the crime in Tennessee or Alabama in order to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be fair.
Is he limited to that, or could they make the argument that his leadership at a federal level impacted the residents
sort
of that particular state?
I mean, sort of the closest thing to that is the RICO charge in Georgia.
Yeah.
Right. Against Donald Trump for making a phone call to the Secretary of State and saying, "Oh, you've got to find the votes." So that's pretty thin gruel. And if those charges actually go forward and there's some kind of a conviction on them, I mean, then basically what it's saying is, geez, I guess if I'm president, I need to be I'm making calls, like I'm going to get recorded every time I call somebody, right? So I guess I should be careful where I'm calling.
Or maybe just be careful of what you're saying.
Well,
I mean, if you're going to be recorded all the time and you're the president, maybe you need to watch your language. And the RICO charges in Georgia aren't just based on a single phone call on Donald Trump. It's based on the coordination of all the people around him, some of which have already flipped and said, yes, this was a coordinated effort in order to execute a change in the voting. That's what Cheesebro has admitted.
Well, right. But like on a political campaign, there's always going to be a bunch of people trying to help you accomplish what you want to do after an election, especially if you're in a recount scenario. I mean, I've done that, and heck, I was in Arizona on behalf of the Republican National Committee and Donald Trump in 2020, and for the first 4 days or so after the election, right, all the modeling that the Trump campaign had and that the RNC had said that Arizona election was going to flip, and that it was probably going to be a matter of like 1,000 votes or less. Yeah. Right. And while we thought that, there were a couple real issues in Maricopa County with the in-person voting where there was an issue with, like, by the way, there was like a green button on their machines down there that we called the green button of disenfranchisement, which literally, like, if your ballot was getting spat back out at you by the automatic tabulator, that's telling you made a mistake, check your ballot, fix it. But if you press the green button, you could force it to take your ballot and it would smile at you. Literally, it would do a check mark and say, good job. And you just disenfranchised yourself by pressing that button, right? So there were probably about 1,500 or so votes that Donald Trump lost in Maricopa County because of election officials pushing that green button for voters to get rid of lines, right? Give or take. He lost Arizona by over 10,000 votes, right? Yeah. But the whole point of it is, in that window, in those 4 days, of course, all sorts of people in the campaign are calling elections officials saying, turn over those documents. We want to know how many of times that button got pushed. We want to know what the training was on those things, right? And you're doing that because you have to file these election contests or recount actions so quickly, and they have to be resolved so quickly. If you don't get the information you need as a lawyer to make your case, the case dies, right? So what the Georgia case, I think, would teach me if I'm the president of the United States is, hey, look, let my campaign people make all those calls. I shouldn't make any of them myself, not because it's unseemly, right? But because I don't want to go to jail if I lose.
In some ways, and part of the other one is that one of the things when you were challenging some of the results in Arizona, just to kind of come back to some conversations we had earlier, one of the things you couldn't do is invent stuff, right? Like make up and make false statements about what happened or what could have happened, and saying votes were switched here and there were computers that did this. You couldn't make false statements. And that's what other lawyers that were involved in other cases are getting pinched for, is because they made false statements to the court, and you can't come to court and lie.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. If you do election law, right? Because recounts, election law, it forces judges to push everything they're working on aside. Yeah. They have to turn to that immediately because of how important those cases are. So as a lawyer, you have to stick to the facts, right? Here's what we know. Here's what we legitimately believe. In Arizona, by the way, once we realized, hey, man, there's maybe 1,000, 1,500 votes here that could flip, right? This election's going to be outside that. We had to say to the court, we have to drop this case because there's no way the results change, right? Yeah. Everything we've told you is true. However, we can now see that the number of votes that could change isn't enough to change these results.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that story leads other people to conclude that there is massive election fraud. They believe that happens hundreds of thousands of times across the country now because it happened once or twice. Yeah, or 1,500 times.
I want to ask you real quick about like Project 65. This is a discussion that Bill and I have had. Is the effort to disbar all these attorneys based upon the idea that they lied in court and therefore should be disbarred, because you can't do that in a court of law, or because they raised challenges or wanted to explore legal theories like alternate electors and a slate of alternate electors? What is the reason for the disbarment that's taking place?
Well, I mean, the reason for the disbarment, lots of attorneys make mistakes. By the way, I mean, I'm not perfect. I mean, I've been practicing law for only about 15 years, Bill, by the way. But everybody makes mistakes. Okay. So I'll say this, and honest mistakes should not lead to an attorney's disbarment. They may sometimes require a suspension. They may sometimes require a reprimand, but an honest mistake, right? Like, hey, I genuinely thought this, I screwed up. Right. And as a result, I didn't live up to my oath. I don't think that should, the first time that happens where somebody does that with no disciplinary record, I certainly don't think that should lead to an attorney's disbarment. Project 65, though, I mean, look, what this is actually about is intimidating lawyers who want to who want to do what I do for Republican candidates. And I don't think it's terribly intimidating, because I got to admit, some of the folks that they're going after really gave Project 65 a ton of ammunition, because one of the things you've got to do as an attorney, right? I like most of my clients, right? I believe them. But I have to check what they tell me, because when people are angry, especially, angry or upset, right? Or panicked, right? Or frustrated, which can all happen when a candidate loses a close election or is behind in a close election. Right? The political consultants, the candidate themselves, can honestly believe some things that just aren't true. And as a lawyer, you've got to run that down before you put it into a pleading, sign it, and say to a judge, hey, you can trust me as an officer of the court. I've got a good faith basis for saying this, right? And so the example I gave you guys from Arizona is sort of how it's supposed to work. Okay. I sit down with the modeling people. They tell me like how this election's going to narrow, what votes are still out. I can look at how many times there was an issue with this machine. I can look and see, geez, if I do the math, that looks like enough votes to potentially change the outcome of the election. Like, we're inside that margin. Okay, I can run into court and tell a judge with a straight face, stop everything, listen to us, because this election may hang in the balance on this legal question. The minute that every day I'm asking the modeling people, hey man, I don't see it narrowing as much as you say it's narrowing, right? What gives? And eventually when they say, yeah, maybe our model's wrong, we actually think it's going to be 5,000 to 7,000 votes, then you have to have the hard conversation with your client that says, look, we've got maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500 votes that might change here. The margin's going to be outside of this. If that doesn't change in the next 24 hours, we have to inform the court, because the court is stopping everything to hear this case. And we have an oath that says we're not going to waste the court's time. We're going to tell the court the truth.
So with regards to the alternate electors, is that grounds for disbarment?
So, I mean, like, this is actually a lot of lawyers who do what I do discuss this, sometimes when I think everybody thinks lawyers are always getting together for cocktails, right? But I mean, but it's not usually over cocktails. It's usually like, at an office or, conferences or something. But even when there's a cocktail, we'll say, hey, would you have advised the alternate elector strategy if you believed that the elections were actually still in the balance? And I think that's a really tough call, because, I mean, look, let's say one of these states, there was a recount going on or an election contest, and let's say it was decided by 100 votes, right? An election that close, as we learned in Florida in 2000, it's really hard to figure out who won. That is almost essentially a tie with the number of mistakes that can happen, even honest mistakes in election administration. So, well, you're getting up to the deadline for the Congress to decide whether to certify results, right? What if we don't know which slate of electors, right, should actually be casting votes, right? So in most of these states, the alternate slates were actually the Republican slates of electors that were nominated for those offices. And I think it's, if there's a chance the election changes, I would probably advise somebody, hey, and by the way, I wouldn't blame a Democratic counterpart if they did the same thing. I'd probably say, look, you've got to have both slates of electors meet and cast their votes and have them both go in, right? So that basically it buys the court another 2 or 3 weeks to figure out this election contest, and then Congress can take that into account and decide which slate to take. The problem here is that what came out is that it looked like some of these elector slates were an artifice, right? To basically give Congress a chance to sort of just delay stuff and see if the lawyers could find up another argument, right, to change the outcome of the election.
And the other mechanism was to have Pence refuse the votes and claim confusion and then throw it back to the states. But the weird ones were the only ones they were tossing it back to the Republican states. They were the swing states anyway to take the electoral votes from Biden.
Right.
And the other problem being by the time you get to the vote count, very few, if any, of those court cases were still extant. 90% of them had been decided and done. So the idea there was a question over, and every one of those elections in that state had been certified is valid. So those electors the alternate electors were no longer valid either by state certification or by court.
No, I mean, Bill, I got to say, you just hit the nail on the head, especially when you said, like bad faith, right?
That's it.
That is where a lawyer, right, can get, and by the way, that's where a litigant, somebody in court, can get themselves in trouble. And if a lawyer is using the trust that a court has to place in them in bad faith in order to basically saying, I know that there's actually no valid legal, or maybe there is a valid legal challenge, but I haven't figured it out. I don't know what it is. And so I'm going to play games. I'm basically going to abuse rules in order to try and buy a tactical advantage for my guy or my gal. That's where you get in trouble.
And that's where Rudy Giuliani got in trouble for, because he was actually in court and had to say, well, we have a lot of theories, but not any proof. Yet he had alleged all of this proof in his filing documents. Right. And then when he shows up in court, he's like, I got theories.
So disbarment, though, at that level, is that in your mind worth that?
I mean, I'll say, look, I mean, I'm not a specialist in attorney discipline at all, right? But I'll just say, when you act in bad faith, right? If somebody can show that you were saying one thing to one person and telling a court something else, right? Candor before the court is one of the, so that means truth telling to the tribunal is one of the most important rules for an attorney. That is one of the ones that in law school you get told, violate you can first time get disbarred.
But so what I'm trying to understand is, though, is Project 65 legitimate in its effort to go after 100 of these guys?
I mean, I think it's legitimate, right? But I mean, I don't think Project 65 is doing it for pure-hearted reasons. Project 65 is doing it, right, to basically hold up some scalps and say, hey, boy, you ought to be really nervous, Republican election attorneys, because we might come for you too. I mean, I'll say that there's a whole bunch of us out there. And I do this work. Project 65 doesn't bother me in the least, right? Because to Bill's point, you've got to do the crime to do the time. And I'm an attorney first, right? And I'm and I work for conservative causes and Republican clients second. The reason why people, to the extent they still have faith in the justice system, is because people in it take their oaths seriously, right? I do. Most of the attorneys I work with, I know all the attorneys at my firm, for example, but I mean, basically every attorney that I've run into in this space and worked with for any extensive period of time, they all take it really seriously.
Speaking of good attorneys, Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan, pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He's the son of a police officer. He's also a former seminarian and has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. He's a titan in the courtroom. He's also the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kapler's Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplerslaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P LISlaw.com. We'll continue with Chris Murray. He's a partner with First and 14th. I'm going to ask him next. Is Justice Alito some crazed Christian nationalist trying to reshape America? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. It's just a flag enthusiast.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. After 8 months of fighting in Gaza, the United Nations Security Council has adopted a resolution supporting a ceasefire. The US-led proposal is a 3-phase plan to end the fighting, return the remaining hostages, and rebuild Gaza. 14 of the 15 council members gave their support, with just Russia abstaining. It comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Egypt and Israel as global pressure for a permanent ceasefire mounts. Some undocumented migrants could soon be put on the fast track to US citizenship. According to multiple reports, President Biden is mulling a policy that would provide protected legal status to undocumented migrants married to US citizens. No official decision has been made, but it would be the latest attempt to address immigration, considered by many as one of President Biden's greatest political vulnerabilities heading into the November election. Apple's Siri assistant is getting an AI boost. Thanks to a partnership with ChatGPT, iPhones and other Apple products will be equipped with greater artificial intelligence capabilities from later this year. Apple Chief Executive Tim Cook said the development would take their products to new heights. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
All right, joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show is Chris Murray. He's a partner with First and 14th Law. I want to ask you about this. Alito unfiltered on tape, Huffington Post. Alito says one side of political fight is going to win. Private event recordings reveal the Supreme Court justice also agreed that the nation needs to once again become, quote, a place of godliness. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Alito said the political rift between the left and the right would be extremely difficult to repair, and that one side was going to win, according to a secretly recorded comments made at a private event earlier this month. Lauren Windsor, who describes herself as a documentarian and journalist, shared recordings of the two encounters with Alito and Chief Justice John Roberts at an annual event held by the Supreme Court Historical Society on June 3rd. She said she posed as a religious conservative and held discussions with both men. Is this shocking and scandalous, Chris Murray?
So this is in that category of scandals where it's I can sum it up as, oh no, somebody told the truth in private and they said exactly what they think. Is anybody actually surprised that Sam Alito said this? I mean, Sam Alito is a faithful, a practicing Catholic. He is unabashed about this. And I think as far as is one side of our political conflict going to have to win, because what he said was the differences between the two sides are over very fundamental things, like what gender means, right? And he said, what he said in context was, once you're getting to those sort of basic conflicts, how do you compromise on that stuff? It's impossible to compromise. It's impossible for the left to compromise. It's impossible for the right to compromise. So the only way out is one side wins. I think that's exactly right.
And you don't think it's bad for a Supreme Court justice to be saying this? Aren't they supposed to be arbiters of neutrality?
Well, I mean, so I don't know what he just said there. That's not neutral, right? I mean, what Supreme Court justices aren't supposed to be lobotomized, right? I mean, if they're asked for if they're asked for their opinion, right, especially at a function where the judiciary is talking like, and they say, well, I can't have an opinion on anything unless I write it down and it's in a case. That's ridiculous. So no, I think this is a complete nothing burger.
But that's kind of what we make them do during confirmation is we do this dog and pony show where all they do is they get up there and say, I have no opinions at all. I can't tell you anything, and I've never decided a single thing in my entire life. In fact, I don't even know what ice cream I like.
Right.
And we know it is all BS. And I think that there are people sitting on the sidelines that see the dog and pony show and then see these statements behind the scenes, and the impression is everybody in those robes is lying to get that job. And so they're not being truthful going through the confirmation process. So should we trust them to begin with? And part of it being Alito's right. One side has to win, one side has to lose. However, he gets to decide which side it is. And that's a little bit different.
Well, I mean, so do members of Congress. They get to decide which side it is. So does the president. They get to decide which side it is. That's why we divide up our government. And I mean, you're right about the confirmation hearings. They've been turned into a farce.
They are.
The last good Supreme Court confirmation hearing, right, was Antonin Scalia. Before Robert Bork. By the way, I would encourage your listeners, if you want just some wonderful YouTube, find Antonin Scalia's confirmation hearing and the mask. He smokes a pipe. Smokes a pipe. Responds to Ted Kennedy by slowly packing a pipe, lighting it. Right, taking a couple long draws and looking at Ted Kennedy, right, like he is one of the dumbest human beings in the world, right?
Oh, that's great.
But and by the way, the Senate changed its rules after that. That was because of that hearing. Couldn't smoke in the Senate anymore.
We're just out of time. Chris Murray, First and 14th. He's a partner with this great law firm. If you want to learn more about them, go to first-14th.com. They do work on First Amendment and 14th Amendment issues, religious freedom, free speech, all that good stuff. Check out first-14th.com. Great organizational lawyers there. Chris, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Guys, it's always a pleasure. Thanks.
All right, 7 o'clock hour. Richard Holtorf coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Great conversation with Chris Murray. If you missed it, we discussed Alito. We discussed, the effort to disbar Republican attorneys and Project 65. We talked about Hunter Biden in his case and whether or not he'll be convicted. So if you missed any of that, go to the 710 KNUS podcast. You can download that. Chris, very smart, Harvard-educated, partner with First and 14th Law. A lot smarter than Bill and I. So when Bill and I debate legal stuff, it's like
it's not good.
Like just cats fighting each other. We have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, geez. I so appreciate him.
Absolutely. In the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to host Richard Holtorf. He's calling for Dave Williams to resign. The battle for the kind of civil war happening within the Republican Party. You're going to get more information on this show than you will anybody else. Richard Holtorf joining us 7 o'clock hour. Ted Harvey going to respond to him in the 9 o'clock hour. So it's a full day covering the Civil War. I don't think they got the votes to take out Dave Williams, but we'll see. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Talk 710 KNUS.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, June 11th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center. sometimes pretty crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So get that coffee brew in Denver. It's a Tuesday morning, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up in just a moment, Richard Holtorf is going to be joining us. He's a candidate for Colorado Congressional District 4, but he's had enough of Dave Williams and is calling for his resignation. There's about a dozen counties or so that want the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party out of here. But do they have enough votes? We're going to get the other side as well. Ted Harvey, who's a member of the Colorado Republican Central Committee, will be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour to defend Dave Williams and say, no, let him finish his term. This is just a distraction from what we need to be doing, which is going after the Democrats. So we'll get both sides. Give us a call as well, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Let us know where you stand. Is it time for Dave Williams to go? Is too much divisiveness, too much brokenness in the Colorado Republican Party? Or is he standing boldly against things like pride? And you support him and you want to see him finish his term and see if we can get some victories this November. Would love to hear your voice on this. By the way, Billy, I did a poll on this yesterday.
Oh, how'd it go?
It's about 24 hours. So I made a 24-hour poll. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Yeah. We've got 51 minutes left to vote in this poll. It's on my X account. If you go to x.com/Jeff Hunt, should Colorado GOP Chairman Dave Williams resign? Now, this poll's open to anybody, so I'm sure there's some Dems and independents that voted in there too, but who knows? They have the freedom to do that. Should Colorado GOP Chairman Dave Williams resign? Yes, 73.7% to no, 26.3%.
That's not good.
Wow.
Man, that stinks.
Ouchie. So,
yeah, that hurts.
Tell us what you think. Love to hear your opinion on this. This is where your voice here in Colorado is heard. All right, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 61 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Hunter Biden's federal firearms case, is in the hands of a Delaware jury. The judge instructed them to start deliberating after the prosecution and defense wrapped up closing arguments on Monday. The president's son is accused, of course, of illegally buying and possessing a gun while on crack in 2018. Attorney Chris Murray on the show last hour.
I don't think anybody's ever seen somebody who enjoyed taking as many pictures of himself doing hard drugs. That's all I needed. I mean, how many pictures with a crack pipe in a bathtub do you need to see, Jeff? I'm sorry. I think the evidence there is overwhelming, and I think if the jury looks at it objectively, he's going to be convicted.
Great points. And Chris added, hey, it's simply a sad story. And we see that every day in this case. Hunter's father somehow got through a speech last night, leaving out the facts of a Florida law. But whatever it takes, President Biden will do what he has to do to push the narrative at a pre-Juneteenth celebration at the White House.
Freedom's making it harder for black people to vote or have your vote counted. Closing doors of opportunity. Attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you can believe it, banning books about black experiences.
Wow. All right. The Manhattan District Attorney who prosecuted former President Trump in the lefty lawfare case is agreeing to testify before Congress. Alvin Bragg's office responded to a request from the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee to answer questions about the case. Republicans have accused Bragg of carrying out an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial authority. The Attorney General's Office of New Jersey is looking into whether the conviction of former President Trump in the kangaroo court case should impact his 3 state golf courses from holding a liquor license. New Jersey law says that a liquor license shall not be issued to anyone under 18 or anyone convicted of a crime involving what it calls moral turpitude. Trying to crush their political opponents, they will stop at nothing. Jefferson County Coroner's Office has confirmed one person has died after that fiery plane crashing in our Arvada neighborhood last Friday. Melissa Brinkman has been identified as the victim who lost her life since the crash. Very little information on the details has been shared. Colorado taking action to supposedly keep elections safe and secure. Governor Polis signed an executive order Monday activating the state's National Guard cyber team. 4 to 6 members will help with election cybersecurity defense efforts during the primary on June 25th. This will start 1 week from today and continue for up to 30 days. For voters, ballots have already been mailed out and must be returned by 7 o'clock at night on Election Day. The Rockies shut out by the Twins last night, 5-0. Nikola Jokic will play for the Serbs in the Olympics coming up this summer. Broncos 3-day mini camp underway. The NBA Finals continue tomorrow with the Celtics leading 2-0 against the Mavericks, and the Panthers lead the Oil 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals. 58 in Littleton, 55 in Boulder, and 61 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Good chance for thunderstorms again today. Partly to mostly cloudy, highs 80. Some thunderstorms could be strong to severe through evening. Lows tonight, upper 50s and lows 60s. Partly sunny Tuesday, highs 80s. Not as many thunderstorms, but a few. Mostly sunny and dry, warm. Low to mid-90s Wednesday, Thursday, upper 80s Friday. Friday and Saturday afternoon and evening thunderstorms return. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, if you're listening to the Jeff and Bill show in the 7 o'clock hour, you're going to hear something you might normally hear in the 6 o'clock hour. But Billy and Chris and I got so into it on false electors and disbarment and Hunter Biden and Samuel Alito. We went a little long in that conversation. So if you missed that, you definitely want to go to 710knus.com to download that, where Bill and I were actually talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, rather than each other, know nothing. That's what I'm guessing.
But let's do You Choose the News, Billy.
Oh, this is sketchy because the people in charge are actually awake at this hour, but we are taking our lives, our careers in this segment in our own hands with this edition of You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs this morning for mere moments and to find really dumb headlines, stories about us humans, giving them even stupider headlines of this really dumb radio news game. Why? Well, it's a lot of fun, kind of silly, and waste some time. Plus, the people in charge do not know we're doing it, maybe up until now. They've just woken up a mere 8 minutes ago. Hopefully, they haven't flicked on that radio to see what silliness we are involved with. And remember, Roll 'em Out Shelves is proudly not sponsoring this segment. They don't want to be anywhere near it. They are a legitimate company that actually will come to your home for free to do an in-home estimate of your kitchen, bath, garage, clutter, whatever it is. They'll solve your problems, but the one problem they can't solve is what the hell's going on right now. All righty, here we go. Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson, You Choose the News. Headlines today, gentlemen. Headline number 1, When Heroes Let You Down. Headline number 2, Fairy Tale Housing Solution. Headline number 3, Finally, Something Congress Does Well. And headline number 4, Think of it as a tip. Jeff Hunt, your choice, sir.
Congress does something well? What?
Yes,
Bill?
Finally, Congress is doing something well. In fact, if you want to get big and rich like those members of Congress, all you've got to do is invest like those members of Congress. In fact, the hottest trend right now in investment strategy is tracking the trades of those in Congress and the people in their close families. There's the CEO of Universal Wales. It's a financial startup that offers investors tools to track the market activity of anybody in Congress. So when they buy, you get buy, because we've talked about it before. It is amazing how genius level at trading they become the moment they step into Congress. They do not have to trade a stock ever in their life.
I think Nancy Pelosi, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but it's like one of the top stock trade pickers in all time?
Yeah, they routinely outpaced S&P 500. They routinely outpaced most mutual funds. Yeah, wonder why. And the other part is, if you don't think that our Congress members should be trading stock, start doing the same things they are. They'll stop that thing real quick.
It.
Yeah, if you're getting as rich as they are, this will all change. The entire rules of the game will change. That's how it works.
I mean, if you're in New York and you get busted for insider trading, that's very serious.
Yeah. But if you're in Congress, it doesn't matter.
Join the trip to Tahiti.
Exactly. All right, Blake Olson, second choice this morning. Your headlines are When Heroes Let You Down, Fairy Tale Housing Solution, or Think of It as a Tip.
Let's go with the fairy tale housing solution.
Yes, this is a fairy tale housing solution. Don't tell Denver Mayor Mike Johnston about this one, but a Montana couple spent over 2 years building their very own house by hand. It cost them less than $20,000. It is 700 square feet, but unfortunately, they reached back into the fairy tale way of life. The house is made out of clay, sand, and straw. 3 little pigs unavailable for comment at this point. It's actually something called a cob house. They ran across it when they were traveling in Wales. It's a unique way of building a very inexpensive home. You have to mix it yourself. And because they've been enthusiasts, they kind of studied it. And after they completed college, they went ahead and they decided, we're going to build our own mud house.
This looks like something out of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like a Hobbit house.
Yeah. And the thing I'm looking at is I want to know about the snow. I mean, I can see, rain, stuff like that.
That's the first thing.
Snow is the thing.
And wind you're Montana. And all that.
Yeah, you're in Montana.
What town is that in?
I didn't see the town.
You didn't see the town?
It
sounds like something that would happen in Livingston, which is kind of an artsy town.
Oh, that could be.
Beautiful place outside of Bozeman. Maybe.
The thing is, the couple had the family had like an acre of land outside of town. And so they were like, well, can we just use it and go build them? So the last 2 years, they've been making mud houses. I know. Kind of crazy. All right. Jeff Hunt, final choice this morning. When Heroes Let You Down, or Think of It as a Tip.
Let's do When Heroes Let Us Down.
Yes, sometimes your heroes, even the ones that are saving the universe, can let you down. Yes, it's unfortunate. I hate to break this news to each and every one of you, but this weekend, Optimus Prime was arrested in Texas. Yes, Austin Police Department have revealed that they have arrested Optimus Prime, but no, it was not in a battle with Megatron. It is 37-year-old Optimus Prime Blakely, who changed his name a number of years ago because he is an Autobot enthusiast. Yes, he is not a robot in disguise, but they did say he was in the disguise in a stolen vehicle and speeding mightily down the road when they pulled him over. Again, it sounds like a neat thing when you're naming yourself after the cartoon character, but as an adult, every time you get picked up for a crime, you're going to be in You Choose the News. That is just a lesson everybody should take. Alrighty, that is it, gentlemen. Thank you so much for playing along. That's the end of You Choose the News. As always, Jeff and Blake are the big winners. I am just a big, giant loser. But remember, rollemoutshelves.com. Free in-home estimate. But please do not tell them about this. They love 710 KNUS and all of our listeners. They hate this silliness. Yeah, don't break it to them. Thank you. Back to you, sir.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Joe in Arvada, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Joe.
I couldn't help it but weigh in on the Dave Williams controversy.
Oh, cool.
First of all, your vote, 71% against, 28% for, right? Well, that's about the ratio of true conservatives versus rhinos here in Colorado. 71%. Well, now, and then the question, of course, has to be raised: how many invasive cyberpunks are in there voting?
This was a highly scientific poll on my Twitter account. So no, look, you got Democrats in there. You got people that probably don't like him. What's your take on Dave Williams, Joe? Are you ready to send him out, or do you think he's doing a good job?
Dave Williams is duly elected, should stand his ground, win this fight. He is a true conservative. Look, people, at a true conservative. He doesn't mince his words. He's not lying to fit the left and the right and just find that groove right in the middle so he can get so many of those unaffiliated votes. He says what he believes. He also is for a free Colorado. You want a communist? Go ahead, put another communist in. You'll just have a duplicate of everything you have in the government right now.
What if Dave loses on June 25th his primary? Do you think that is an indication that he doesn't know how to run a race? and therefore should hand it over to somebody else because he's technically in charge then of getting Republicans elected across the state of Colorado this November.
No, that's an indication of what an embarrassment of, the Republican conservative groups that we have left here that haven't vacated for, Colorado, Fornia. The point is that Dave Williams was elected as the leader of the GOP here. He should stay out his term. If they want to vote somebody new in, they'll have their chance next year.
Yeah, Joe, I'm sympathetic to that argument because I worked for the state Republican Party when it was more moderate. And when that happened, there's an element that spent their entire time not building up against Democrats, but they spent their entire time challenging the state party chairman, saying he needs to go. He's not conservative enough, all that stuff. And now the shoe's kind of on the other foot, where you have a very conservative state party chair, and now you have more moderate element going, he's a distraction. We need to spend our time and energy trying to get him out. And I'm going, it's always this civil war within the Republican Party. Can we, to your point, Joe, Dave was duly elected. Any of the bylaws he sought to change, he did through the process. Can we give him a chance to get through November? And if measure him by this, if there are fewer Republicans in office, then I think you have every right to make the case that there should be a different chairman there because that's his job. End of the day, that's the only thing he's measured on. Either there are more Republicans in office or fewer Republicans in office. And if there are fewer, he's got to go. If there are more, then you got to give him credit, but at least allow him the chance to finish out the term.
Well, I sort of agree with that. I think also we have to ask ourselves, what kind of Republicans are we going to put in office? Are we just going to put mimics of Democrats in there and say that we won? Really?
But Joe,
is that what you want?
But there's no way you're going to get a Rick Santorum conservative like me to ever win anything in Denver County. So don't you have to run a more moderate Republican to at least try there?
Look at Lauren Boebert. Hey, she's now what I have said before. I'll say it again. We have to win this thing one bite at a time. So let's focus on a few races, pick them off and win them. And then let's retrench and go in back to battle and win again. The real reflection of why Dave Williams will probably not win his primary is because we have embarrassingly allowed an open primary. That's disgusting. It's anti-constitutional, and it should be challenged and won so that we can have real conservatives and Republicans vote for Republicans. Duh.
I love it, Joe. Thanks so much for the call. Joe from Arvada. His line will be open 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. Look, many of us are getting older. You got elbow pain, joint pain, back pain, knee pain, but you don't want to run out there and get surgery. I don't blame you. There's another option, and it's doing great work. I want to talk to you about my friends at QC Kinetics Denver, who offer regenerative medical treatment. These are non-surgical, drug-free solutions. Look, as we age, that joint pain becomes common, from muscle strains to herniated discs. Symptoms like muscle aches and shooting pain can worsen with movement. Why risk surgery when there's a safer option? With no downtime and a free consultation, QC Kinetics often provides same-day treatment. Visit my friends at QC Kinetics and revolutionize your approach to lower back pain. Give them a call at 303-900-8986 or visit painfreecolorado.com to schedule your free consultation today. That's 303-900-8986 or visit painfreecolorado.com to schedule your free consultation. Be sure to tell them Jeff Hunt sent you. All right. Poll coming from 5830. This is fascinating. How popular is Joe Biden? They're updating the president's approval rating as he gets closer, and they're comparing it to other presidents going all the way back to Truman. And at this point in his presidency, he's he's not looking good at all. He's down pretty much where George H.W. Bush was or Jimmy Carter. Does this spell disaster for the Biden campaign? Should they change him at this point? Go forward with him? Or is Donald Trump so unlikable among some that Joe Biden may squeak out a victory, even though his disapproval rating at this point is at 56%, his approval rating only at 37%. Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, it is going to be a gigantic hurdle for Joe Biden to crest over. However, the Republican Party has chosen the most likely candidate to lose to him. And that's a real weird issue. That one, the Democrats chose to stay with the unpopular aged president. And then the Republicans figured the guy that is best situated to take him out is the one that lost to him last time and does the worst in the polls against him and erodes the number one most prevalent argument against him, which is age. When you're running against a guy in his 80s, you can't run a 77-year-old and say it matters. The larger electorate is not going to see that as a huge difference. And I've said this before. You put a bunch of guys between 75 and 85 in a room, nobody's walking up and asking, who are all those young guys hanging out with the old folks? They see a bunch of old folks. That's it. That's the visual.
It would be amazing because you still have the conventions coming up in July if one of these parties switched.
I can't see how they would, because that would be an open revolt inside the Republican Party. I mean, there would be pitchforks.
Republicans, it would be harder. I agree with you on that. Almost impossible.
That would be open revolt, as in people getting shot. You think that you think the mechanism's taking away Donald Trump? You think MAGAs can just go, okay? No, that would lead to violence. And on the Democrat side, what you would see is all the Democrats stay home. They would sit there and say, I'm not voting because I didn't pick this person. You don't. And
you think Democrats are that committed?
Here's the idea: is I don't think Democrats want anyone to tell them, "Hey, this is going to be your candidate. Shut up and do it." I mean, if you looked at what they did during the last election cycle, Joe Biden was the very last choice of 90% of the electorate. But then eventually they went, "Okay,
I don't
fine.
like Trump.
He's the one that can beat Trump. Everybody else, Bernie, and everyone else I like."
You have a chance. You have an opportunity at this point, if you're in party leadership, to go with a single change. We lock up victory for 4 years.
Here's the thing:
if Biden, I mean, you put any Democrat, maybe not Gavin Newsom, but you put Jared Polis, you put.
I disagree with this. I disagree.
You don't think that they would lock it up easily against Donald Trump?
No.
And if Donald Trump did the same thing and said, all right, guys, I'm looking at the strategy here. If we put in a Ron DeSantis, we lock this thing up because the polling is so bad.
Yeah.
Against the other guy.
Both candidates, their egos would never let them do that. And I don't think that either electorate wants to have someone anointed. And the reason being is because we have primaries and we're asked for our vote for who we choose in the primary. And what would be the conclusion of either party if they did that would be our primaries don't matter. Mm-hmm. You really don't care what we want to do. You just want to appoint somebody. So if you just want to appoint somebody, fine. And that's why I think Democrats absolutely would stay home. And I think there's this fallacy, that's this assumption that anyone the Democrats put up would absolutely frog stomp Donald Trump. I do think he's a weak candidate, but Kamala Harris, she doesn't win.
No.
Pete Buttigieg, he doesn't win. I don't think Bernie Sanders wins. I mean, I can go through a list of Nancy Pelosi wouldn't win. Mark Schumer wouldn't win.
The bench on the Democrats is so bad. I'm trying to think on who would be like a moderate Dem that would appeal well.
There isn't a lot. And that's the thing is, so the idea is, and there's this assumption that, there's someone waiting in the rings. And I know the assumption is Michelle Obama. And I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form.
No, she's living the Oprah lifestyle,
of course
man.
She is. And the issue is, and here's the other part. We heard that last election cycle from the same people. So maybe they're wrong. I'm just saying, maybe they're wrong because they are. So yeah, that's not happening either. And there's no reason. There's no reason for Michelle Obama. Again, the most difficult job on the planet is probably president, probably the top 3.
Yeah, right.
Why, with Michelle Obama's lifestyle in retirement, would you ever do that? It's like the assumption that Barack Obama is sitting back there and running the Joe Biden White House. Why in the hell would he do that? He gets none of the accolades, gets none of the benefits, and none of the pay. What are you going to sign up to do that? You're going to sign up to be this master wizard behind there and get none of the benefits out of it, none of the pay, none of the recognition for all the stuff you're doing? No way in hell.
I think he likes the idea of influencing policy.
No way.
But
way.
The fact that we're sitting here in June, this is just where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Going, we're in June. You have conventions coming up in July. It would be one switch. And you could likely frog stomp to what you said. I think you could, your opponent, because both these guys have high disfavorables.
Yeah, but the question is on the Dem side, who do they pick? Like we just ran through a list.
Yeah.
Who do they pick?
Yeah.
Who
Dem
do you
side, I
possibly
think,
pick?
harder.
You can't
I
pick
think if
Fetterman.
you put in
You
Ron
can't pick Adam,
DeSantis,
you can't
though,
pick Schiff. You can't
and
pick,
I like Trump. I like Trump a lot, but I think you put in Ron DeSantis and you lock this thing up and
not
run
even
away
close.
with it.
No, because MAGA will not show up.
I think MAGA would.
No, what they would do is they feel they will feel that the party mechanisms have usurped their chosen one. I mean, you realize that Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It would require Trump going around with it.
Marjorie Taylor Greene
it would require.
Over the weekend made an analogy between Jesus Christ and Trump during a speech. I mean, that's the anointedness that they view Trump.
And there's no way Trump was involved in the decision.
Oh, there's no way he would.
If Trump was involved in the decision, it's just amazing to me. You look at such high unfavorables on both sides, and you have the ability to just lock it up for 4 years and have that power.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing: is the one group that had that power in the elections, and you abdicated it. And the question I'm still getting to eventually is I remain unconvinced that Donald Trump is a better candidate now than when he lost in 2020. I don't think he's as appealing across the board to voters.
But has Biden gotten so bad that maybe
again,
he can eke
that
it
is
out?
a really good balance out.
But then, I mean, either of these guys win. What do you look at in November or December?
Yeah.
How the other side of the country feels, man. It just feels like we're driving towards further and further division. Maybe Alito was right. Hey, want to talk to you about Ultra Botanica and their product, Ultra Cur. There's a lot of curcumin products out there. You may even hear them advertised on other radio stations. They always require you to buy to try, but not with Ultra Cur. Ultra Cur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule. Works fast to address soreness, pain, those types of things. You can get a free 3-day trial of Ultra Cur by visiting any Denver Metro natural grocers. All you have to do is ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager. They believe so much in their product, they'll give it away for free for you to try. Ultra Cur is fueled by a patented technology, giving you the true edge to support peak wellness, energy, and an active lifestyle. You owe it to yourself to try Ultra Cur today. Gives you unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. Get curious, Denver. Head to the natural grocers and grab your free 3-day Ultra Cur trial with no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. When we come back, Richard Holtorf is going to be joining us. He wants Dave Williams out. We'll get his take. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. 4 instructors from a US college have been stabbed whilst working in China. Footage of the aftermath appeared on social media, showing the employees of Iowa's Cornell College who were attacked whilst in a park in northeast China. The group are in the country as part of an exchange program. The US State Department says it's aware and is monitoring the situation. New research suggests that elephants use names, not the ones given to them by humans, but rather specific sounds they use to call each other. Scientists at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology used artificial intelligence to help make the discovery. Tony Waterman has more.
The researchers used machine learning to analyze nearly 500 recordings of wild elephant vocalizations, and the program appeared to identify name-like components in those rumblings. So the researchers took those sounds into the wild and played them back over a loudspeaker to the elephants. They found that when the elephant's name was used, it came over to the loudspeaker more quickly and vocalized a response. Other animals, including dolphins and parrots, also use name-like sounds. In Austin, Tony Waterman, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
You're not allowed to play this song unless it's Friday.
Good song, though. Such a good song.
I think he is the new Jimmy Buffett. Zach Brown.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
And if you look at his catalog, he's embraced a lot of these kind of just chill beach songs.
Yeah. For a while, I think that, Jack Johnson early on was doing some of that, but he just kind of fell off.
I haven't heard of that guy in a while.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why he was gone. Yeah. He made his money, and I'm sure he's surfing
sitting
somewhere.
on a beach. Yeah, surfing. He was Santa Barbara guy.
Yeah.
He was coming up when I was in college in Santa Barbara.
Oh, nice.
So all the girls would go hang out with him.
Oh, of course. Yes. Yes. The life.
All right. Dave Williams, the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, he's been called upon to resign. Richard Holtorf included in that effort. He put out a press release the other day. Holtorf calls for Colorado GOP Dave Williams to resign again. State Representative Richard Holtorf, candidate for Colorado's 4th Congressional District, called for Dave Williams to resign his position as chair of the Colorado Republican Party for the 3rd time. Holtorf's had enough. Holtorf said, using veteran strategic leadership, I already identified the Colorado GOP leader's failure on 2 occasions and called for a new path forward. A recall petition has started to call for a no confidence vote by the Colorado GOP leadership team. I think you guys do have the votes at least to call the meeting, but do you have the votes to kill the king? I'm not sure you do. We'll see. Richard Holtorf, you're joining the Jeff and Bill show. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Yeah, morning.
Well, good morning. Good to be here.
You guys got the vote to take the king out?
Well, Jeff, here's the problem. The fact that you reference him as a king is so problematic.
Oh, it's just a turn of phrase that if you go for the king, you got to get him. But do you have the votes for it?
Well, that's for the Colorado executive committees of every county to decide. You see, the state GOP chair is there to serve the 64 counties of this great state and the Republican Party. He is there to help Colorado Republicans build their brand. And that's not happening right now. He is there to super elevate all Republican candidates in an election cycle that leads up to the primary, not sort and call the herd and have a slate of chosen ones that the king has picked. There's so many problems right now in Colorado, and the latest one is the attack on Pride Month and this timely or untimely rather announcement and email that came out.
What did you find offensive about the email, Richard Holtorf?
Well, personally, I believe that kids should not be groomed. Absolutely agree with that. The transgender movement is a dangerous movement, and it's being led by a lot of very radical activists and dangerous people, particularly when you start looking at attacking children. Kids just need to be kids. Leave those kids alone. That's what the song said that Pink Floyd wrote. And we should let kids be kids. But it's gone beyond that now. But the problem is, Jeff and Bill, is June is primary month. June in an election cycle in Colorado. And there's a lot of candidates that are not going to be helped by the untimely release of this. And it's all about strategy. It's not about what I personally believe or what Dave personally believes or what motives or activist actions that we want to promote as individuals. But it's about electing Republicans. There's a lot of Republicans now that are very concerned. And they're worried about their electability now because of the controversy that's been caused by this particular email announcement.
Now, Dave Williams' response.
The problem.
Dave Williams' response was, "We are Republicans. We stand for traditional marriage. I am being bold. The Democrats have gone after kids with this LGBTQ effort, and we need to stand against it." What's wrong with being bold on that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with being bold on that, and I appreciate the boldness, but it's the methodology. The state GOP should be helping build the platform, and that's what should be being sent out to every candidate in every district and every competitive race with encouragement and talking points and saying, this is the platform, these are the messages. This is the message that's going to resonate in your district to help you get elected and get another Republican in the state legislature, in the upper chamber or the lower chamber, or help another Republican get elected in this state. Because right now, my friend, that number has been going down. And with this type of messaging, the way it's being delivered, it arguably could go down even more. So yes, I agree. But when you want to be bold, how are you being bold? And what is the venue? You see, Dave's got it all wrong, guys. Dave and the state GOP, they don't have a bully pulpit for promoting the things and the way they're promoting things. That's not their role and place, although they have now accepted that as the truth seekers, as the purity testers, as the messengers statewide through a blowtorch. The state party's job is to help the party, and the candidates are the ones that have the voice. They're the ones that are in the trenches on the front lines fighting. They're the ones that should be, and you should empower them with support. You should empower them with resources, and you should empower them with the proper messaging that resonates with the electorate and the voting public.
Now, Richard Holtorf, candidate for CD4, joining Jeff and Bill. Richard, I would like to play a little bit of audio of Dave Williams. This is a recent statement that he made, and we're not taking this out of school because this was forwarded to us by Mr. Williams himself in response to the controversy. Take a listen, and I would like to have your response after this.
Again, I do not care what some pride organizers think about what we're doing. What I care about is protecting our children. What I care about is advancing biblical principles. And what I care about is what the Lord has to say. If that costs me this election, if that costs me everything, so be it, because my reward isn't here. I don't know about Jeff. I'm not looking at June of 2024. I'm looking for eternity. That's where I'm headed. And if I do everything right and I get crucified for it, so be it, because I'm not greater than my master, Jesus Christ.
Well, there's Dave's justification. Richard Holtorf, your response.
Well, first of all, that was in a debate with his opponent in CD5. That has nothing to do, nor should it have anything to do, with the state GOP. That's one of the problems, my friends.
Yeah.
Now the waters are muddy because he's running a CD5 campaign and he's trying to be the state chair. And one is not the other. Arguably, when he announced for public office, he should have stepped down and said, I'm going to focus on CD5. I'm going to run for Congress. I'm going to let the number 2 person or someone else or have another special election to elect a new state party chair. Because now I have seen flyers and mailers and emailers and such that for Dave Williams for CD5 as a campaign product that has paid for by the Colorado Republican Party, the COGOP. So is the COGOP now an arm of the CD5 campaign to elect Dave Williams? I don't know. But this debate is about him pleading to a higher authority, the God Almighty, which I appreciate and I respect, and I'm a Christian, and I look to heaven every day for guidance and discernment and wisdom. But Dave isn't getting it because the plea he made has nothing to do with his leadership as a state party chair, because he's having serious leader failures. And I've tried to talk to Dave back when we served in the state legislature. Even afterwards, when he got elected to a leadership position, we've had conversations, but he doesn't listen. We have multiple county chairs that now are clamoring, saying we've gone too far. Dave, you've gone too far. When Jefferson County, Arapahoe County, Adams County, Las Animas County, Grand County, Mesa County, so many counties now are saying, enough's enough. This is beyond the duty and charter of the position. And we are now getting into dangerous waters, and we have to change course.
Talking with Richard Holtorf, he's a candidate for Congressional District 4, put out a press release calling for the resignation of Colorado Republican Chairman Dave Williams. Richard, if you succeed, let's start there. If you succeed, who should be the chairperson of the Colorado Republican Party?
Well, first of all, this isn't an individual effort, and it's very sad that we even have to have this conversation. Based on certain choices and decisions, the trajectory could have been very different. So this day and where we're going in Colorado Republican Party saddens me. But to answer your question, the electorate, body of Colorado.
Oh no, we're losing you.
Decide. They need to decide. They need to decide. This isn't something that I decide. There's plenty of good leaders out there in Colorado. We've got a fistful of them. I've had people ask me, you should step up and be that. I said, I don't know about that. I said, we need to find the right person at the right time for this job, because we are entering into literally 2 weeks, 15 days away or less from a primary election. And even the log cabin Republicans, who are Republicans, and they are gay and or lesbian, but are Republicans, now are stepping away and very upset with this messaging, because now they don't feel they have a place in our party.
Richard, I think this effort would have a stronger argument after June 25th that if Dave Williams can't win his own primary, then you have real concerns as to whether or not he can win other elections for other Republicans come November. Why not wait till after the primary?
Well, I'm not the one that's driving the timeline. Please understand me. And we don't need to rush per se in this effort. We need to change course. And some people are clamoring in the state in leadership positions, Republican chairs from many counties, that are saying that if we don't change this trajectory and have a loud voice and speak out, then it's going to cost Republican seats in the state house. We're already outnumbered 2-1. How about 3-1? You really want to be wallpaper in Colorado? Just lose more Republican seats either in the state house. How about if we give up the supermajority in the state Senate? One more seat we lose, and the Senate now is a supermajority. The Democrats can do all they want. With a supermajority in both chambers, there is no stopping their agenda. So Republicans in the state, and Colorado State GOP is supposed to be focusing on the state offices, state positions, and get Republicans in the state General Assembly. Primary mission.
I agree with you, Richard. I agree with you.
Focused on that.
What happens if this effort? So we talked about what would happen if this effort succeeds. There's people out there that may seek this leadership role. What happens if this effort fails? Is this just contributing to more division within the Republican Party at this point?
Well, I would arguably say yes. But we already have an incredible amount of division in the Republican Party, and it appears to be continuing and growing. There is no message of unity and trying to bring the tent flaps open and make the tent bigger. It's tighter. It's now, here's the slate of candidates that have been chosen that have kissed the ring of the state GOP. Here's the chosen ones, only vote for them. Federal, state. Oh, you didn't fill out our survey, or you didn't fill out it right? You don't get that endorsement. That's not the role of the state party. The role of the state party is not to be a bully pulpit and blow these messages all over Colorado, or the nation for that matter now. It's not the role to create a purity test for Republicans to say you are worthy or you're not worthy.
Richard, would you have the same position on this if they had endorsed you?
They shouldn't have endorsed anybody. And I would have rejected the endorsement and said, why are we endorsing anybody in a primary? It is the voters who decide, not state party. Don't endorse anybody, Dave. Don't do this. Look at the problems it's causing within the state party right now. Look at the problems it's causing within candidates and candidate fields. Look at the problem in CD4. Take my name out of it. This isn't about me. See, that's the problem, Jeff and Bill. These egocentric son of a bucks want to make it all about them. It's about something else. And I learned this in my military service. Selfless service puts everybody else above you. You subordinate yourself to them, and you try to lift everybody else up. And in turn, if you do a good job, you are rewarded. I didn't make the rank of 06 in the military because I was a selfish man, and I put myself above everybody else. You've tried to put your troops above you and the mission above you and the country and the Constitution above you. And you tried to do a good job within the rules and regulations that you had under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Dave has washed away many rules. He has gone in there, and with his team, they've changed the rules. They've written new rules in 2024. They haven't even followed the bylaws and age-old, decades-old traditions, my friends. And now look at the controversy. Look at the problems we're facing. Because, Democrats are the ones, if they don't like the rules, they change them. I remember that from my years in the legislature. Into and include the Constitution. They'd change that in a snap if they could get away with it.
Richard Holtorf, we're just out of time. Holtorfforcolorado.com is his website if you want to learn more about him. Richard Holtorf, he's a veteran, he's a rancher, he's a no-nonsense conservative. Website, Holtorfforcolorado.com, HOLTORF, and then FOR, Colorado.com. Richard, we wanted to be the center of this conversation about the civil war happening within the Republican Party, and I really appreciate you taking time to be on the show with us to discuss your side and to answer the tough questions. Appreciate it, sir.
Real appreciate it.
Sir.
Have a great day.
Sir. I hope we can get through these tough waters. We've got to find a way to elevate our Republican platform and our party.
Amen.
God bless you. God bless your message. And God help us so we can straighten this out.
Richard Holtorf, thanks again. Look, friends, I've had a lot of work done on my teeth. I don't have great teeth. It's a genetic issue. And so I spend a lot of time with dentists. With all that I've had done to my teeth, believe me, I know a good dentist when I see one. Dr. Mike at Rocky Mountain Dental Group is a great dentist. He helps people like you and me look and feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. I've been going there for over 20 years. Dr. Mike and his entire staff are outstanding. I like the fact the same person always cleans my teeth. If you need an awesome dentist, Dr. Mike is your guy. If your gums are receding, it's critical to address this issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The procedure involves making a small hole in the tissue and gently repositioning the gums. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike to discover the benefits of this revolutionary procedure. Give him a call today, 303-233-1335, or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. That's RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. When we come back, we're going to be talking to the president of Intercessors for America. They've got a big event coming up to get a little prayer going in the state, which I think we probably need. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Good chance for thunderstorms again today. Partly to mostly cloudy, highs 80. Some thunderstorms could be strong to severe through evening. Lows tonight, upper 50s and lows 60s. Partly sunny Tuesday, highs 80s. Not as many thunderstorms, but a few. Mostly sunny and dry, warm. Low to mid-90s Wednesday, Thursday, upper 80s Friday. Friday and Saturday afternoon and evening thunderstorms return. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. In the 8 o'clock hour, Dave Kubal is going to join us. He's the CEO of Intercessors for America. This is an effort to pray for America, and they're going to host a gathering upcoming on June 22nd here in Colorado. So a week from this Saturday. Listen to some of these great folks that are going to be a part of it. Heidi Ganal, Stephanie Luck, Kevin Lumberg, myself. We're going to get a lot of folks involved to get together to pray for this state and to do some policy discussions on everything from the transgender movement to parental rights to the pro-life movement as well. You're not going to want to miss it. Great conversation coming up with Dave Kubal. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Hi, Dave. It's Bill Jeffrey. How are you, sir? I'm good. Thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate your time. I'm going to put you on hold. We have live news coming up here. Right after the live news, there's a brief recorded weather, and then it's your turn. All right. Great. Yeah. Go hard. Yeah.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up just after the news, the Intercessors for America State policy and prayer events bring together the spiritual synergy of those in government and legislation with the body of praying believers with a powerful time of briefing, prayer, and connection. They're going to host an event here in Colorado just coming up a week from this Saturday, June 22nd, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the club at Rolling Hills, where lawmakers, policy experts, and people like you can get together to meet, update on policy, and most importantly, pray for the direction of the state of Colorado. If you want to be a part of something like that, go to ifapray.org. That's ifapray.org. Click on the events tab and you can see their special Colorado policy and prayer event. To tell us more about that in just a second is the president of Intercessors for America, Dave Kubal.
This is going to be a great conversation here on 710 a.m. KNUS, broadcasting proudly to Denver.
That's right.
No, I had to do that because we missed the legal ID.
Oh,
I have to do that. I have to do frequency, call letters, broadcast location.
You know, Billy,
to
if you ever ran into a problem, Chris Murray would be a great
Yeah.
attorney to hire.
Yeah, but I got to make sure I ticked all the boxes. So sorry, I jumped in there right now. I had to make sure the legal ID got plus or minus 5 minutes. Okay, back to you, sir.
All right, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Bill. 64 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
I mean, this is how we've lost Colorado. This is how we've, in many ways, lost many of the important debates around our country because we don't talk about it. We don't debate on it. We cede the discussion to our enemies.
That's Dave Williams a couple of days ago here on the station on AM 710, KNUS News Talk 710 with the legal ID for Billy. And CD4 candidate Richard Holtorf on with Jeff and Bill last hour. He's not supporting GOP Chair Dave Williams. He's called for him to resign 3 times. Williams sent out an email last week on the subject of God hates pride, and also talking about protecting kids from the alphabet mafia.
Personally, I believe that kids should not be groomed. Absolutely agree with that. The transgender movement is a dangerous movement, and it's being led by a lot of very radical activists and dangerous people, particularly when you start looking at attacking children. Kids just need to be kids. Leave those kids alone. But the problem is June is primary month. June in an election cycle in Colorado. And there's a lot of candidates that are not going to be helped by the untimely release of this.
Holtorf says it's all about strategy, and this won't help that strategy. Jefferson County Coroner's Office confirming 1 person has died after the fiery plane crash in a neighborhood in Arvada last Friday. Melissa Brinkman has been identified as the victim who lost her life. Since the crash, very little information on the details has been shared. Hunter Biden's federal firearms case is in the hands of a Delaware jury. The judge instructed them to start deliberating. The president's son is accused of illegally buying and possessing a gun while on drugs 6 years ago. Attorney Chris Murray on the show earlier today.
I don't think anybody's ever seen somebody who enjoyed taking as many pictures of himself doing hard drugs. That's all I needed. I mean, how many pictures with a crack pipe in a bathtub do you need to see, Jeff? I'm sorry. I think the evidence there is overwhelming, and I think if the jury looks at it objectively, he's going to be convicted.
The Attorney General's Office of New Jersey is looking into whether the conviction of former President Trump in the kangaroo court case should impact his 3 state golf courses from holding a liquor license. New Jersey law says that a liquor license shall not be issued to anyone under 18 or to anyone convicted of a crime involving what it calls moral turpitude. They will stop at nothing. The left will. The UN Security Council is approving a U.S. drafted ceasefire deal aimed at stopping the fighting between Israel and Hamas. Officials say Israel has accepted the proposal, Hamas not so much. Political analyst Habib Redagor says Bibi and Netanyahu needs to zero in on the objective.
So there is this Israeli army that has proven incredibly competent terribly suffering Israeli hostages, and an Israeli government that seems to be always at every turn taking the path of least resistance. When there's resistance from the far-right factions and they say, you have to push through, then Netanyahu pushes through. And when Biden comes and pressures him and says, stop, then he stops. He always does what he thinks is his own political survival.
A Colorado family is trying to rebuild after a tornado left a trail of damage. They run a charity motel that had its roof ripped off last weekend, landing 200 feet away. The 10-room building provides shelter to people in need in the Washington County community of Anton. The owners wanted to turn it into a nonprofit, but those plans are on hold. A GoFundMe has been set up to help them with repairs so they can keep the motel open. NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. The Panthers lead the Oilers now 2-0. And in the NBA Finals continue tomorrow. The Celtics also leading 2-0. Rockies shut out by the Twins last night, 5-0. And Nikola Jokic will play for Serbia's Olympic team this summer coming up in the games. 61 in Parker, 60 in Lafayette, and 64 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Tuesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Good chance for thunderstorms again today. Partly to mostly cloudy, highs 80. Some thunderstorms could be strong to severe through evening. Lows tonight, upper 50s and lows 60s. Partly sunny Tuesday, highs 80s. Not as many thunderstorms, but a few. Mostly sunny and dry, warm. Low to mid-90s Wednesday, Thursday, upper 80s Friday. Friday and Saturday afternoon and evening thunderstorms return. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Think Colorado could use a little more prayer? I do. That would help in a lot of the issues we're facing here. Someone leading that effort is Dave Kubal. He's the president and CEO of Intercessors for America. He's got an event coming up in just about a week from this Saturday, where they're going to get lawmakers together. They're going to get policy experts together, and they're going to do some prayer in the state of Colorado to help turn things around. It's called the IFA Colorado Policy and Prayer Event. It's Saturday, June 22nd, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the club at Rolling Hills. That's in Golden, Colorado. You can register by going to ifapray.org. That's ifapray.org. Dave joins us on the Jeff and Bill Show. Dave, thanks so much for being on the program.
Yeah, good morning.
I cannot believe I'm on the Jeff and Bill Show. How great is this?
You're moving up in the world. You're moving up.
Oh, man, I love Colorado. Love what you guys are doing. I'm calling in from D.C. today, so great to be able to chat with you and catch up on what's going on in Colorado.
Well, let's talk first about what you do with Intercessors for America. What's the organization all about?
Well, we believe that God has plans and destinies for the nation, and that he involves men and women in many different ways. They are involved in government by holding office or by voting, but also we believe that God is desiring to use his people to pray and intercede and to release his plans and destinies for a nation. So, Bill and Jeff, I got some statistical evidence that God is on the move. You ready for this?
Love to hear that. We need a little pick-me-up here in this deep blue state.
Well, I wish you could see what I see from a national perspective. The desire and interest, even in Colorado, to pray and intercede for this nation is consistently growing. And really over the last few years has grown exponentially. And I can tell you this, that if God is putting on the heart of men and women to pray for this nation, he's not done with this nation. And he's certainly not done with Colorado.
And what are the statistics that you got that are kind of showing that?
Oh, we interact. We went from interacting with hundreds of thousands of people every month to millions of people every month. All of our statistics, we had 80 million forms of engagement just at Intercessors for America, where somebody engaged in praying, some way that we can measure. And of course, countless millions of prayers go on that we cannot measure. But when somebody joins a webcast or opens one of our emails, we can see all of that. And it's consistently growing year after year after year.
Why is it important to pray for our nation?
Well, I think it's important to pray for our nation because even you were talking about in the news about trans and the trans movement and protecting our kids from the alphabet mafia. And this is certainly one of the things that we will be talking about on June the 22nd as we get policymakers together to brief intercessors so that they will know how to pray. But you probably have seen the statistics, Jeff. I feel like I know you pretty well. I know that you're on top of things, and I'm sure you've reported that 25% of Gen Xers consider themselves, that's 1 out of 4, consider themselves LGBTQ, whatever the alphabet of the day is. But if you look at globally at nations across the earth, those that have encouraged or allowed or legalized same-sex marriages for decades, the average in those countries is only 5%. So globally, the average is 1/4 of what we're seeing in America today. So we have certainly, as we are focusing, the press is focusing in so-called Pride Month, what it really is emphasizing that we have become a culture of grooming, sexual departure from God's plan and image. When it's 5 times the global average, something is going on, Jeff and Bill, and we got to do something about it.
So one of the things you want to do about it is host a policy and prayer event that's coming up June 22nd at 8 a.m. at the club at Rolling Hills, which is in Golden. You include some names here in Colorado that are well known. Senator Kevin Lumberg, Representative Stephanie Luck, Aaron Lee. She's the mom in the Art Club movie that has been fighting in schools against the trans agenda there. Focus on the Family representative will be there. You're also having Heidi Ganal be a part of this. So quite a lineup. What's the plan for this event? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, over the course of the day, we will go through a series of briefings and then prayer. And what we want to do is we want to encourage these policies experts, these state representatives in their fight for conservative, godly values. And then for those that will be there who will be men and women of prayer, they'll know how to pray more effectively. And what we've seen as we've done these events all across the country is there's something special that happens that day when we do these policy and prayer events. But what really happens is there's a relationship formed with intercessors, with the policymakers and the state lawmakers. And that pays dividends over time as relationships are formed, activation strategies are released. And so it's really the start of something great. And Jeff, I will add that really it's a continuation of the great work that you've been doing in that state and all the listeners that listen to Jeff and Bill every morning. We want to continue encouraging positive, conservative family issues based on freedom that we find in the scriptures. And we want to get together on this day, June 22nd, at Club at the Rolling Hills and pray together.
You can learn more about this if you go to ifapray.org, ifapray.org under the events tab. You can click right there. The IFA State Policy and Prayer Events brings together the spiritual synergy of those in government and legislation with the body of praying believers for a powerful time of briefing, prayer, and connection. There's no Western Conservative Summit this year, and so this is a great time for Bible-believing folks to be able to get together and meet with lawmakers, talk about issues, and then pray. It's really important to get together for a few reasons. One, you oftentimes feel isolated. You watch this culture, you watch everything happening in the news, and you sometimes feel like you're on your own. But when you can get together, you realize there's a lot more people that share that biblical worldview, that want to make a difference in culture, want to meet with leaders and experts, want to get together, but most importantly, to pray. And I'll say this. 1 Timothy 2:1-4 says this very scripture, I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. This is good and pleases God our Savior, who wants all people to be saved and to come to a knowledge of the truth. So I read that very quickly, but there's a few things I want to pull out. This was Paul writing to a young guy named Timothy that was just beginning his ministry. Think about where Timothy was going and what he was having to deal with. An incredibly hostile culture, right? Sounds familiar. He was said, very first thing that you should be doing is praying for those in positions of leadership, that they would be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. So we're praying that they would be saved, right? Because we know that when our elected lawmakers become believers, it impacts our culture. It impacts their leadership. They're filled with the Holy Spirit, and that's important. And you do that so that we may live in peace and may be able to raise our kids in a good culture. So we need to be gathering in prayer. And as those of us that live in this deep blue state, that has literally, it's wild. You go down to the state capitol, and it's like it's almost a game down there to pass laws in total rejections of the teachings of the Bible at this point. They're like, you know what does the Bible say? All right, let's do the exact opposite these days. So the state legislature does that. Those of us that are Bible-believing Christians feel like we're a super minority. So you can either stay at home, be frustrated with the direction of this culture, get angry about it, and just, nothing. Or you can get out there and actually be a part of something that's seeking to change this culture so that our children and grandchildren inherit a better Colorado than the one we're living in right now. That's the IFA State Policy and Prayer event. It's Saturday, June 22nd. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the club at Rolling Hills. Is there a cost associated, Dave?
That's a good question, Jeff. I think there is. I think it's nominal. But, I really want to emphasize everything that you just said. For those listeners out there that may feel discouraged and alone in their values, biblical values, conservative values, I can tell you you're not. You are not alone. There are thousands and thousands within the state of Colorado, millions and millions within the United States of America. And when you get together and build relationships and encourage each other, you will be encouraged. That's why we do these events. They are so important. And then, Jeff, if I could just add a layer to the 1 Timothy 2 passage that you very articulately described, that's a foundational scripture for Intercessors for America. But I got to tell you that in the Greek language, there is only one time that we are commanded to intercede, specifically the Greek word that's translated intercede. And it is in this 1 Timothy 2 passage. So when people of faith talk about praying and interceding, we, yes, need to intercede, but we need to remember that the scriptures teach us that first and foremost, we are to intercede for those who are in governmental authority over us. So I really appreciate you bringing out that passage. It is so applicable today.
Dave Kubal, President and CEO of Intercessors for America, the organization ifapray.org, ifapray.org. He's hosting an event coming up this next Saturday, June 22nd, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the club at Rolling Hills. Only $30. Only $30. You get to spend a whole day, get to hang out with some great people like Heidi Ganal, Senator Kevin Lundberg, Representative Stephanie Luck, who I think is brilliant, Erin Lee, the great mom from the Fort Collins area that's fighting against the transient of the kids in schools. Nicole Hunt with Focus on the Family will be talking about the pro-life movement in Colorado. Social conservatives, you can be a part of this event. Heidi Ganal will be there too. It's a lot of fun. Just go to ifapray.org. ifapray.org, only $30. You have a great day. Dave, I want to thank you so much for being on the Jeff. I almost called you Representative Dave Kubal. Maybe that's where we need to be going next. But Dave, thank you so much for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Well, this is such a highlight. I'm not sure where my life goes from here. I really don't. I mean, what a blast to be with you guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Dave, I think people will really enjoy getting to meet you as well. And there's a lot of good folks that are helping put on this event. And like I said, there's no Western Conservative Summit this year. So great opportunity for social conservatives to get together. ifapray.org is the website. All right, we'll get to your calls and texts when we return, but I want to talk to you first and foremost about Roll 'em Out Shelves. What a great company. I have so loved getting a chance to meet Joyce and Brent Tolliver. Great family. It's a small business, so you're actually working with the business owners, right? This isn't some corporate thing that if there's something wrong, you're going to have to go through a ton of levels to be able to get to them. They're the ones who install it. Brent was over at the house. He put in Roll 'em Out Shelves. I love it every day. Billy, I can just pull out those shelves, get all the stuff that's in the back, stuff that we used to just forget that would all the way, fall all the way into the back there. I know your mom's getting these done here soon. Great, especially if you're older, so you're not having to bend down and reach all the way in the back and pull stuff out. Roll 'em Out Shelves understand that every home storage needs are unique, whether you're dealing with tight corners or expansive cabinets. Your shelves will be custom built to maximize every inch of available space. Begin the affordable transformation in your home for less than $1,000 when Roll 'em Out Shelves efficiently organizes your space with sturdy Baltic birch shelves built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. Call for your free in-home estimate today. 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601, or rollemoutshelves.com. Be sure to tell them Jeff sent you, rollemoutshelves.com. If you watch us online, you get to see what the product looks like right there. It's awesome. Beautiful. And they even show how they're installed. Gosh, what a great company, rollemoutshelves.com. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
This hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Washington is looking to deepen its military ties with Japan by boosting warship and aircraft repairs in the country. Officials have just finished 2 days of bilateral talks in Tokyo that focused on Japan's role in boosting US weapons production. Chris Gilbert reports.
The inaugural meeting of the Defense Industrial Cooperation, Acquisition and Sustainment Forum saw officials from both countries agreeing to jointly increase the production of advanced weapons. It comes as Tokyo looks to find loopholes in its strictly pacifist constitution to begin exporting military hardware. The US ambassador here, Rahm Emanuel, says that Japan is going to play a crucial part in assisting the US to meet all of its security challenges and obligations.
Apple's Siri assistant is getting an AI boost. Thanks to a partnership with ChatGPT, iPhones and other Apple products will be equipped with greater artificial intelligence capabilities from later this year. Apple Chief Executive Tim Cook said the development would take their products to new heights. In response, Tesla and X owner Elon Musk threatened to ban Apple phones from his companies due to data privacy and security concerns. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Denver Post reporting Denver Public Schools enrollment projected to fall by more than 6,300 students by 2028. The school board is debating a policy regarding school closures. Denver Public Schools projects 6,338 fewer children will attend its schools within the next 5 years as the declining K-12 enrollment continues to hit Colorado schools and their budgets, despite the unexpected boost from last year's surge in migrant students. Enrollment in Colorado's are the migrant students even had enough of this school? Send us over to the Catholic schools, please. Oh man, enrollment in Colorado's largest district is expected to fall by 8.3% from 76,157 K through 12 students during the 2023-24 academic year to 69,819 pupils during the 2028-29 school year, according to a presentation DPS officials are scheduled to give to the Board of Education on Monday. The school board on Monday is also expected to discuss the district's policy on school consolidation and closures, which approved would set guidelines for Superintendent Alex Marrero if and when he decides which schools to recommend for closure.
Closures are hard. That's the inner workings inside of the school district. Closures are really difficult for them to execute. Yeah, it's difficult. There are layers inside of it. One, you have to divide up where those teachers and students go. And that's really, really difficult because of geography. And you can always imagine that anybody's neighborhood school, whether it be elementary or middle, and that's probably the ones they're going to close because they're the smallest and they have the most of them. Most elementary schools, then middle schools, and high schools. So you're probably going to get elementary schools taking away that neighborhood school. Taking it away, it only takes it away to the community, but also the rest of the community has to commute further. You're putting them into a different area. It's hard to keep teachers, especially when they have to move around from other schools. And the other thing is, let's jump in our time machine back to yesterday with Gay Ribble. And she said, the number one thing when you're buying a home right now, the number one question you ask is school district.
Quality of school.
Yep. How good are the schools near you? And for me, not all, but a part, I would guess 50% of the erosion in the DPS enrollment is due to crappy schools. That there are better options out there that parents can get to and get away from some of the other stuff that you're experiencing in Denver. I'm a city kid. I grew up very close to downtown Denver. There is something that comes alive in me when I'm around tall buildings. There's a little bit of smog, and I'm hearing the roar of engines bounce off across the glass. There's something there that pleases me. But I wouldn't live near downtown. I wouldn't move my family into somewhere that's closer to downtown. Not at all. There's no way I would do that based on the environment at this time. And so more people are going out to the suburbs. We talked earlier this week, and it was last week, Southlands Mall. How, I'm so old, Southlands Mall didn't exist when I moved out into my house. Now there are so many people living that far southeast. They had to redo the geographic districts a couple of years ago in Cherry Creek schools because there were too many people that had gone all the way out there in what was a field 20 years ago. And now that's where they're moving. And those are kids that are not enrolled in DPS. That 25 years ago, 30 years ago, they'd be DPS kids. But the districts failed them.
Is it a good thing that this is happening? Because I remember reading polls. We worked on school choice stuff in Washington, D.C., and it was like the one issue you could transcend, particularly with inner city Black communities where conservatives and inner city Black communities lined up on an issue. And it was because that they were very eager for their kids to grow up. They wanted religious schools.
Yeah.
They thought it was really good for their kids. I think it's really good for my kids. My kids are going to be going to religious schools for high school. They went to basically a Hillsdale school for elementary school, which was about as religious as you can get in a charter school. But is this good because kids are finding charter schools that the families like, or they're homeschooling?
That's part of it. But I think, when you talk about them wanting to send their kids to religious schools, I would say that there is actually an underlying motivator. It's not necessarily religion. It's the discipline. And what I mean by that is the religious schools and the charter schools can kick your loser kid out. The public schools can't. And that's kind of the constraints inside of the public system is they can't get rid of those really deep problem kids. The idea being, we had, who was it? It wasn't the superintendent, but, during the East High School shooting where during the pat down, the kid pulls out the gun and shoots two of the staff members. Well, that kid should not have had to go through a pat down every day that he's in general population with the rest of the students. An average student should not be sitting next to someone that has that kind of concern about violence. And the argument from the DPS is he deserves to be there. No.
Well, and those
No, he
kids
doesn't at that
too,
point.
when I've talked to teachers, those kids might be like 1 or 2 in the classroom, but they take up 80% of the teacher's effort.
Yes, that is the problem, because they're dealing with their outbursts. They're dealing with them not focusing. They're the ones that is causing the problem. That, to me, is the real big issue, is we need to remove the problem kids, and in some cases the problem parents, outside of the public school system. But we don't have
But
a
is
mechanism for
that all they're going to become at this point? Public schools are just going to become, for lack of a better term, dumping grounds for kids that have problems. And then anyone that has parents that are engaged and want their kids achieving are finding charter schools or homeschooling or private schooling. So this is just going to continue to get worse and worse.
Yeah, it will continue to get worse, especially given things like voucher programs and that school choice. Absolutely.
But
because
for the kid, it's worse. But for the bad kid, it's probably worse. But for the parents that want their kids to achieve, it's a better thing, isn't it?
No. Here's the idea. But the voucher thing, they can still go to the charter school and not pay a single thing. But the idea that we are taking the state funding that would go to the public school and we're then circumventing it and sending the charter school or to the religious school, what you're doing is you're leaving behind the most difficult kids to educate and then starving them of resources. What do we think is going to be the logical conclusion there? If we cut the money to educate the kids that cost the most to educate, what do we think is going to happen? And I'm not saying we're just going to end up with public schools of bad kids. We're going to end up with public schools of kids that have ESL issues that aren't up to grade level. We're going to end up with kids that are special needs. Special need kids are phenomenally expensive. No charter school will take a special needs kid. Not a single one of them. And very few religious schools will ever take a special needs kid because of those things. So they are constrained on their educational opportunities. It's great for everybody else, but you end up starving the kids that need the resources the most. And that's why what'll happen with school choice and statewide vouchers is you're going to see the core of the educational system absolutely explode and disintegrate. And it will not be a good thing. Not at all. But it may be the goal of what people want, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. I've wanted to buy a billboard for a long time right along I-25, and if I ever hit the lotto, I will.
Yeah.
That just says, for the love of God, get your kids out of government-run schools. No website, nothing.
Yeah.
I just want to send that message to what the left has done to our public education system. They took God out of it. They made it an indoctrination factory for their worldview. Good parents were like, I'm getting out of here, took their kids out of here. And now it just has spiraled down to the point where, to Bill's point, you're only going to have kids that are problem kids that are essentially dumping grounds for them because all the other parents have taken their kids elsewhere because they want quality education. They didn't get it in the government-run system. So to me, I hope it runs into its death as quickly as possible. I think you can come up with other ways. You can possibly require religious schools to take on kids with special needs. I think they do a better job than the government-run schools with that, or problem schools. Maybe we find ways with charters to come up with that. But what has been demonstrated very clearly over the last few decades is that the left cannot run public education. It destroyed it. It destroyed the Department of Education. Trump saying he's going to shut that down as well. So put conservatives back in control, and I think you'll see more improvement with schools. You do with charters. Let's go to the phones. Jay, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jay.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Hey, Billy just made a great comment about the East High School shooter that shot the
right.
I guess it was a dean, or I'm not sure, but shot both of them. He was thrown out of Overland High School for a weapons charge and removed from Cherry Creek schools permanently. And then East High School accepted him with open arms, and then he shot those folks later.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have these kids. They're bad news, but I think that there's like alternative programs that charters have come up, or districts have come up with for kids that are this problematic. I have family members that work in some, but to the point of Denver Public Schools enrollment falling by more than 6,300 students by 2028, I think this is a death that DPS deserves, frankly.
Yeah, Cherry Creek has a place called Challenge School, and it's in Mississippi and like Dayton, just there by just east of Parker Road, and that's where all the kids that were troublesome kids in school, and frankly, I was one of them at one point. You go to the special school, and that's your place that you go, and it has extra security. And instead of doing that, they sent them to Denver East, and the horrible thing happened there.
You said you went to one of those schools, Jay?
No,
Oh, okay.
but I was just about.
I was going to ask you what got you out of it.
Close. Football and girls. I wanted to play football, and I wanted to date girls, and I didn't want to go to the goofy school. So I did some penance, right?
That's a great description. It straightened me out too. My parents were telling me I'm either going to military school or I'm going to church camp, and I thought the girls at church camp were cuter. So it turned me around.
I had a supercharged brain where I had a tough time sitting in the seat, and frankly could learn the lessons real well. And they said, hey, if you don't get yourself together and respect the teachers. And I said, well, I'm bored. Luckily, I went to another program, and it was great. But, that's kind of what we're doing is you're handing off these kids, like, for instance, Kendrick Castillo, those two that did what they did to Kendrick Castillo and killed that young man. They were trouble students at Challenge School. I mean, at
how much do you blame the parents in all this?
I do, for the fact that you give your child a good constitution, and whether it's religious or it's just good ethics. My parents were phenomenal. I was very lucky. And I think that's a good part of it. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but some kids just go off and the parents can't handle them. And I get that. That happens too.
Well, Jay, I appreciate the call. Jay from Denver, his line will be open 303-696-1971.
I also wanted to point out the Challenge School is actually a gifted and talented school. It's not an alternative. There's another one that they have.
Oh, okay.
But it's not the Challenge School. But
there's like different ones. There's ones for kids that are bad and ones that are for kids that are
there's
really
some magnet
talented,
ones.
right?
But the bad one, there are very few of those alternative disciplinary schools. And part of it is you don't want them funded. They don't want to fund them. And the other problem with that, as far as it is transportation. That is a huge hiccup, is because let's say you're in Denver and you live near George Washington, but the alternative school is near North. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how do you get your kid if you're a parent going from GW all the way out to North? How do you possibly get them back and forth every day? And the reason that becomes a stressor is, I would assume that many of these kids that are going through challenges, there are challenges at home as well.
Yes,
and
that's
setting
exactly
on the extra
right.
stress onto the parents to maintain this transportation is a real issue. That's a real issue. And again, if we wanted to really solve this, and that we'd put the money into it, and then you would have a bus and transportation system that would take care of them, and it would have a security officer on the bus. And there would be some other rules inside of that. But
I think we had that in Jeffco, and that person beat up the.
Oh, I know. Well, that was a TA, not a security officer. And that's the issue, because what you have is you have a driver, and then you have a teacher's assistant that is normally on the bus. And that person is the one that took advantage of the kids. And inside of an alternative type school, I would say that you need to have a security officer, someone that is a law enforcement type that needs to be on those buses with those kids going in. But again, you would have to write the check for the transportation, and that would be door-to-door transportation. It would be picking up the kid at the door of their home and taking them to the door of the school and then returning them that way at night. And that is expensive, really expensive.
Lots of text messages coming in on this one. My niece was a principal at one of the disciplinary schools, did great with the kids, but as soon as they transitioned back to the other school, it fell apart. You're right, Bill. It comes, I think the problems come from the home, and that's from a 39-year-old past teacher. I think a teacher of 39 years.
Wow.
Tons of problems. Jeff, public schools basically satanic summer camps.
Well, as long as they have T-shirts, okay.
AKA leftist indoctrination to hedonist camps. Good parents don't send their kids to these schools. I'm interested in that. If you're a good parent, do you send your kids to government-run schools?
Here's the question: I disagree with the premise, because the assumption is that if you don't, you're not a good parent. What if that parent doesn't have the ability or opportunity? What if based on that parent's work schedule, they can't drive the kid to the charter? What if based on the income level, they can't make it to the religious school, which is, again, the base economic reasons why vouchers will fail and only become a rich person subsidy because of how economies work. As soon as we have more people wanting to get into the religious school at the set dollar amount that the voucher will cover, price increases. That's how things work, just based on supply and demand.
Look at colleges.
Exactly. So the idea is you only have a set number of seats in those schools. Once there's more competition, they will raise the tuition. So the people that show up with the voucher no longer can afford it after a couple of years. So again, all you're doing is providing a subsidy for the rich kids to go to the schools they already were in the first place. It doesn't solve the problem.
But I want a lot of kids at religious schools. So I think that's a little bit better.
I'm for that too. I just don't think you siphon off the state money to do it. That if you want to go to the religious schools, you pay for it. Yes, that's a great choice that you can make.
But then you're paying twice for schools.
That's okay. I mean, again, if you think it's a value, and you think there's well, here's the thing: is if you think there's a value to having a well-educated population, and if you want the people in your community to be somewhat well-educated, you probably want that. Just like if you have basic health insurance, but you want to tack on something else or do a surgery that's not covered by insurance, you can pay that out of pocket. Same thing out of pocket. It's the same deal.
Speaking of good health care, I want to talk to you about Ultra Care. I'm thriving and fighting back my workout soreness with Ultra Care. Ultra Care is a patented non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. It addresses your soreness. It addresses your pain, joint pain, all that stuff. Surveys show that 50% of people using Ultra Care find relief within 48 hours and half of those within 2 hours. Experience Ultra Care for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of Ultra Care. Look, a lot of curcumin products require you to buy to try, but not Ultra Care. They believe so much in their product that all you have to do, show up at the Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager, and you'll get your free 3-day trial. Get curious, Denver. Head to the Natural Grocers. Grab your free 3-day Ultra Care trial with no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, you can get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. Tracy, you'll be up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We've got nearly full lines. Let's go to Tracy in Longmont. Tracy, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Hey, how you guys doing this morning? I wanted to let you know, being you guys were discussing God, that the state seal of Colorado, you should really take a close look at it. And it says Nihil sin numen on it, which means nothing without providence. And the motto for the state of Colorado is the watchful, careful eye over all of God's creation. And if you drive down to the end of Louisiana Avenue, you run into the Archdiocese. And if you look at the sanctuary there, that triangle eyeball is supposed to be the guidance, So really, please take a look at this.
Isn't it amazing? You go back to the root, the foundation of Colorado, and yeah, that's part of our history. Nothing without providence. God's watchful eye on this state. What do you think God thinks about this state these days, Tracy?
Well, you know, there's a lot of good people out here, and there's a lot of tumultuous things going on and making politics out of people's personal choices is really a bad idea, and they should cease from doing it.
Well, I appreciate the call, Tracy. Thank you for the reminder.
That was cool. Now, he talked about the state seal, talked about the state motto. A lot of states have state dances, official state dances.
Do they?
Yeah. Now, what is
You're making that up.
No. What is the most popular state dance across the country? What states, states have chosen this specific dance? More than any other dance. I want to say it's in mid-20s as far as the number of states. No, got to go back more to the ranch.
Oh, line dancing? Square dancing.
Square dancing is chosen as the official state dance by more states in our union than anywhere else. Isn't that kind of cool?
My grandpa was big into that. Even towards the end of his life, they'd still get together and go square dancing.
Really?
Dude, that is totally lost. It's like nobody does that.
No, and I'll tell you, that and polka dancing. Polka dancing is a little more silly. But square dancing, there's a real serious skill. To be able to square dance properly, there's a timing nature to it that is lost. And I honestly wish it's the reason that I like some of the old, 30s, 40s, you get the Charleston, you get things like that. And because of the relationship between the two partners and what they have to do, there's something that I don't like the music, but I really appreciate the execution. I think it's really cool to watch. So, yeah.
So RMGO sent out a mailer about George Brauchler. It says George Brauchler can't hide his anti-gun record, and they've got him wearing that kind of old disguise that you would have with the bushy eyebrows and the mustache and all of that. And George says we're going to ask him to respond a little bit about his anti-gun record. Is it serious or not? So give him his shot. Up next, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City, and we are off and running. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Ford, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes, well, let's be honest, most of the time, pretty crazy. You're not going to want to miss this hour. George Brauchler is joining us at the top of the hour here in just a few minutes. Ted Harvey is going to follow him. Ted is part of the Colorado GOP Central Committee defending Dave Williams, so we'll get his side as well. I'm going to ask George this. Does he think Dave Williams should resign? We'll get to George answers here in a second, but we're bringing him on because RMGO sent out a mailer about George Brauchler saying that he is essentially in disguise. He's really got an anti-gun record, and we shouldn't give more power to another slimy, dishonest lawyer on June 25th. George, we're going to get your response. All right, let's check in on the Blake Olson News. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 67 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, former President Trump's pre-sentencing interview in the lefty lawfare case has wrapped up. The virtual interview was conducted Monday by a probation officer who will put together a report that recommends the appropriate punishment for when the president is sentenced on July 11th, the former president. The jury in Hunter Biden's federal firearms case is resuming deliberations in Delaware. The president's son is accused of illegally buying and possessing a gun while addicted to drugs in 2018. Attorney Chris Murray on the show early this morning.
I've never seen, I don't think anybody's ever seen somebody who enjoyed taking as many pictures of himself doing hard drugs. That's all I needed. I mean, how many pictures with a crack pipe in a bathtub do you need to see, Jeff? I'm sorry. I think the evidence there is overwhelming, and I think if the jury looks at it objectively, he's going to be convicted.
CD4 candidate Richard Holtorf, also on with Jeff and Bill this morning. Holtorf is not supporting GOP chair Dave Williams. Williams is Holtorf called for him to resign for the third time. Williams sent out an email last week, of course, on the subject of God hates pride and protecting kids from the alphabet mafia.
Personally, I believe that kids should not be groomed. Absolutely agree with that. The transgender movement is a dangerous movement, and it's being led by a lot of very radical activists and dangerous people, particularly when you start looking at attacking children. Kids just need to be kids. Leave those kids alone. But the problem is June is primary month. June in an election cycle in Colorado. And there's a lot of candidates that are not going to be helped by the untimely release of this.
Holtorf says it's all about the strategy, and Williams is not following it. 4 American educators from a small Iowa university were stabbed in a public park in China. The park was in the country's northeast Heilongjiang province, where they were visiting a partner university of Cornell College when the attack happened. Government officials are working to ensure the victims receive proper care and can return to the United States. Jefferson County Coroner's Office confirming 1 person has died after the fiery plane crash in a neighborhood in Arvada last weekend. Melissa Brinkman has been identified as the victim who lost her life. Since the crash, very little information on the details has been shared. 1 person is dead and 4 others are in the hospital following a Monday afternoon car crash in Centennial. It happened when 2 cars collided at the intersection of East Smoky Hill Road and South Liverpool Street, which was closed for hours after the wreck. There's no word on the current condition of the 4 people who were injured. Dave Kubal, president, Intercessors for America, on with the fellas last hour, and he knows prayer matters, and that includes praying for our country. Big Colorado event coming up on June 22nd at the club at Rolling Hills in Golden. Starts at 8 in the morning.
And what we've seen as we've done these events all across the country is there's something special that happens that day when we do these policy and prayer events. But what really happens is there's a relationship formed with intercessors, with the policymakers and the state lawmakers, based on freedom that we find in the scriptures.
Go to ifapray.org. That's ifapray.org. Rocky shut out by the Twins last night, 5-0. 65 in Brighton, 64 in Glendale, 67 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on the Power Hour. Next, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Good chance for thunderstorms again today. Partly to mostly cloudy, highs 80. Some thunderstorms could be strong to severe through evening. Lows tonight, upper 50s and lows 60s. Partly sunny Tuesday, highs 80s. Not as many thunderstorms, but a few. Mostly sunny and dry, warm. Low to mid-90s Wednesday, Thursday, upper 80s Friday. Friday and Saturday afternoon and evening thunderstorms return. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right. RMGO sent out a mailer about George Brauchler. George Brauchler can't hide his anti-gun record. They continue. George Brauchler pretends to support law and order, but in 2018, he teamed up with the radical anti-gun Democrats to author an unconstitutional gun confiscation bill. What did he do when he was confronted with his own record? He lied and smeared his critics. Do we want a proven liar in charge of prosecuting criminals? Don't give more power to another slimy, dishonest lawyer on June 25th. Are you really this bad, George Brauchler? You're on the Jeff and Bill show. What say you?
Well, I think anyone who listened to the show that was on before yours knows the answer is an unequivocal yes, I am that bad. That mailer was like a big piece of postal hug right there to drop at the same time as the ballots. We're just in the silly season, Jeff. You have been a part of this for years. You've seen this thing. This is just what takes place in races.
Well, what's your answer to their charge that you participated with Democrats to author an unconstitutional gun confiscation bill?
There are very few words on that mailer that are actually factual other than my name. My name is correct. Everything else they put out on there is garbage. And they know that, but that's how the politics goes. So, for instance, I didn't author a single word of any bill. And I want to be clear about this, not just in that piece of legislation, ever in the history of legislation, I've never authored any part of a bill. So, but their goal is it can't be, hey, George supported. That just doesn't sound strong enough. So they've gone ahead to invent this thing where I'm actually the guy that authored the bill, which is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But I get it, man. My favorite part of the mailer, honestly, is the picture that they use an entire side
I like that
giant mailer. It's a good looking picture. They threw a little, almost like a Groucho Marx set of glasses, a funny nose on there, And so I told some people still in the office, I said, look, if I pull this thing off and I win, can we please figure out a way to get some dollars together and blow that up and put it inside the office? It's that good of a picture.
Oh, you should put it on T-shirts. And you should put the final vote count on the back of the T-shirt. Put that on the front.
George,
it's not a bad picture.
George, if you're elected DA, will you prosecute red flag crimes?
Well, I think this is another thing that points out maybe where RMGO ought to sit down and read the law. There are no RMGO crimes. I mean, I'm sorry, there's no red flag crimes. There are no red flag laws. What the question should be is, hey, after the big expansion of this crap red flag law that I testified against in 2019. And by the way, that's not on the mailer. I don't know if you saw that. They never put in their Brauchler only candidate to testify against the red flag law. But after the expansion that included people like teachers, medical professionals, the AG and DAs, the question should be, would you ever seek to get an extreme risk protection order against someone. And I have said this from day one, absolutely not. There is no way that makes any sense. If I ever thought somebody was dangerously mentally ill and had guns, my first phone call is to one of the 3 sheriffs who've endorsed me for the race. And hey, I've got worries. Good luck, guys. I mean, it's not me going to court to say, hey, let's get a protection order.
One of the text messengers here said Brauchler is responsible for red flag unconstitutional laws. You want to take that head on there, George?
Yeah, I don't know how I'm responsible for it since I testified against it in 2019. I'd love it if the texter could respond to that. I'm responsible for the current red flag law because how? And the other thing is, and this is a part that concerns me greatly, we throw around terms like unconstitutional, like it's just a matter of our own personal interpretation when we all know it's got to come down to something in court. My concern is the bill that we have right now is untested in court on constitutional grounds. And my guess is the reason that it has not yet been sent up the flagpole, or at least all the way to the Supreme Court, is there's real concern that the way that the case law is right now, that it could end up being affirmed, and maybe even at the state level, but ultimately at the Supreme Court level. That's a concern for me too. Bad laws can end up becoming enshrined in constitutional jurisprudence. So one, it has never been declared unconstitutional. I'm not aware of one that's been declared unconstitutional, but this particular red flag law is absolutely the most progressive of its kind in America. And that's why I testified against it in 2019.
They include a picture from an email that says, attached is a rough proposal that would start a serious discussion. Next steps would involve running it by CDAC. I can do it this morning. Our sheriffs and chiefs of police and others outside of law enforcement. Let me know what your thoughts are. And then they show a picture of a tweet that says, you have 100% made up the BS amount, me being the author. So help me understand the difference between the rough proposal and being the author of the bill.
Yeah, so as you and I have talked about on the radio before, and I've been saying since, well, for the last 6 years, in 2018, after the murder of Zach Parrish on December the 31st of 2017, I was asked about these extreme risk protection orders. And I said, well, listen, I'm not really interested in participating. And it was, look, in the context of, can we figure out a way to do one that would be conservative, that would be compliant with the Second Amendment? And I said, okay, I can do some research. I can come up with some ideas and try to figure out how to do this. That's what that email is. That email says, hey, here are some proposals. And by the way, not, hey, let's sneak them in. Let's have a conversation with our elected sheriffs. Let's have a conversation with our elected DAs and start to talk about these things. So this idea that it was some sort of subterfuge on my part to sneak something in. But here's the most telling part about what RMGO refuses to do. And ever since they popped this email months ago, this thing's been out there for months. I begged them to do this. There's an attachment to that email. And they clearly got it through a core request, and not of my mail, but it must have been someone else on the email thread. And I said, well, just release the attachment. I mean, this was 6 years ago. Just release the attachment so we can see what these ideas are. Let's see what crazy harebrained ideas there are. They've never once released the attachment. They've never once acknowledged that they have the attachment. That tells you something. If they're not willing to come forward with the truth, but all they want to do is take a few words and try to torture them into, he's the author of the bill. Well, that's just how politics works.
Getting a text message here, 2156. George did a phenomenal job during the STEM trial. He was a great DA, and what a blessing to have the opportunity to vote for him again. How's the race going?
Well, I think it's going great from our standpoint. But, you know, Jeff, one of the things that people should appreciate is when you have a down ballot race, and that is literally down the ballot from the bigger top races, whether it's statewide races, federal races, you have lower fundraising limits typically, and you're a little more obscure. I mean, and you guys play this out every day in the right way. You have on all the big names, the Holtorfs and the Lynches and the Deb Floras and the Boberts, because those are the races that dominate this. You're talking to the big guys like Abe Williams and Jeff Crank and all that. DA in a metro area, as much as it's high profile because of some of the crimes that we get, it's just not at the forefront of everyone's mind. And I live this out too. We walk doors just about every day. We walk neighborhoods and knock on doors. It's humbling, by the way, how many people are familiar either with my name or the cases that we've worked when I was DA and all that. But the other thing that's humbling is how many people are like, oh, there's a new DA's jurisdiction? Like, yeah, first one in 60 years. Oh, the DAs get elected this year? I mean, people just don't know. And these are your 3 of 3, 4 of 4 voters. And for folks that don't know what that means, you are a reliable go-to voter if you continue to vote in successive elections. And that's measured by how many elections there were and how many you voted in. So 3 of 3 would mean exactly what you think it is. Those people who are engaged voters, they don't know that the DA's office is on there. So I think it's going well, the endorsements, the fundraising, all that stuff. The only thing that is unknown is how much RMGO is willing to waste of their contributions to impact a race that cannot affect one iota their legislative agenda.
Would you be willing to work with RMGO if you got elected? Is there an ability to bridge this gap?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what that looks like, because, you know, Taylor Rhodes, who you've had on, the executive director, has been a guy who has publicly stated on Twitter he believes that convicted felons should get their weapons back when they leave prison. I don't agree with that. I think if you are a rapist, someone who raped someone at gunpoint, you engaged in an armed robbery, a bank robbery, you shot and killed someone, but were convicted of second-degree murder, all those people are going to end up on parole at some point and get out of prison. I do not believe they should be able to go back and get firearms. That's a tough gap to bridge right there. I think the position they've taken is extremist. It's unsupported by any case anywhere in America ever. I don't know. It would depend. Certainly, we're simpatico on a whole bunch of Second Amendment things, and I love what they try to do in court to challenge these laws. But it's hard to imagine a more ineffective organization on some of the bigger issues when it comes to the legislative agenda.
So you're telling me, George, that and the listener, that you really have no power to change the red flag law, the one in which RMGO is saying you're responsible for. That's really strange. Now, I think I want to make sure that you are being totally honest with Jeff, myself, and the listener. When you sat down to write Colorado's red flag law, who else was in the room with you? Because obviously they say you're the author. They're right, aren't they? No, you didn't write it?
Billy,
okay.
I struggle to author emails and tweets. If anybody has ever checked my tweets, I usually have to delete them at least once, because after I reread them, I'm like, I'm missing words.
Yes.
Or that's not how you spell that word. So, no, there's no authoring of anything that took place there. And we've had a very open conversation with voters through this radio show, every other radio show, on the campaign trail. What's amazing to me is how the misinformation has permeated some of the activist groups and how they've just taken it at face value. So every place I've gone where people have brought it up, and it's not that many places, when I tell them the truth of what happened, they come away and they feel like nobody ever said that. I had no idea you ever testified against it. I had no idea about this. And I'm like, that's how politics works, man.
Yeah. And the one thing that we're also super confused, you know, as just here on the Jeff and Bill show about what exact state, district, or county were you representing when you were in the Colorado legislature and voted for this red flag law? When did that happen? Because they keep saying that you're responsible for it and you voted for it, and I can't find that anywhere. I don't know. I'm okay at research, but I'm not great. So who are you representing when you voted in the legislature? Did that not happen?
Yeah, I have yet to be in the legislature on the other side of the dais. I've always just sat at the table testifying. So I don't have a vote. I don't have the ability to author anything. But again, let me say this, Jeff, I'd be completely comfortable having this exact exchange with Taylor Rhodes. I will have to debate with Taylor Rhodes. That's how confident I am about what the truth is versus what the misinformation is. But my guess is that dude doesn't have time for the truth.
We got some breaking news coming in right now. Hunter Biden found guilty on all charges. Hunter Biden found guilty on all charges. Count 1, making a false statement on an ADF form intended. Wow. Count 2, making a false statement on an ATF form that would have been kept in dealers' records. Count 3, possession of gun by prohibited person. George Brauchler, initial reactions to Hunter Biden being found guilty on all charges.
Well, based on the information that was publicly available, he looked like he was guilty. This is a dude that should have sought or accepted a plea bargain. I mean, the facts that were out in the public stream made it pretty clear he did do this. But here's the part that we're not talking about yet, and this is where you get Chris Murray back. There is a potential appellate issue here because the question was, could somebody who is an addict or a drug user be denied their Second Amendment rights, which is really what this law is premised on? And it's an often used, maybe it's one of the most used federal statutes by United States attorneys on gun crimes. That thing is going to make its way through the federal process and it's going to get to the Supreme Court. So it is very possible that this conviction could be overturned, not on the false statements piece, but on the underlying law that says you can't be a drug addict or drug user. Again, going back to this, my guess is, in a weird way, RMGO would be supportive of Biden on this. RMGO would have wanted Hunter Biden to win on this case because of their absolutist positions on possession of weapons. That would be its own interesting interview.
Hunter Biden could be the great Second Amendment champion that we've all been looking for.
and you know what we got to do now?
Think about what.
Okay, go ahead, George.
Think about what a weird way think about what a weird place that puts the president in.
Right.
Right. Because now he's got two things to deal with. One, his son is very likely going to be sentenced to prison. And while he said, I'm not going to pardon him, what father wouldn't? Let's say he loses.
I was going to ask you that exact question. Would you pardon George?
Yep. Buddy, what dad would say that they, I don't, there are some parents out there who would say, look, tough love for my kids. And maybe this guy has been such a dumpster fire as an adult. Maybe as a dad, you're like, yep, he needs to sober up and wake up and stop having babies with everybody. But for me, I don't know, man. That's a test I'm not sure I ever want to confront. But this guy has to deal with it. He's either the dad that lets his kid go to prison, which is tough, or he's the dad that pardons him, which is also extremely politically unappetizing. But now his son is going to appeal the laws that he enforces about firearms for a party that hates guns. I mean, there's nothing good about what you just read for the Biden.
Don't do crack. Bottom line, don't do crack. Not good. It puts a whole bunch of people in your life in a bad situation.
Now, the one thing we got to do is hopefully we could take, I'd love to see if we're independently wealthy, take a flight out to Vegas today, because I think one of the hottest betting lines, who goes to prison first? Trump, Hunter, who ends up there first? Now, George, if you had to put down money, what do you think?
I think Biden does, but I think the for sure bet is Biden would do one of those lines. No, I'm kidding. I think
that is so good.
I think Biden goes to prison before Trump does, for sure. He's that charge is a 5-year kind of prison charge that they send you to. He doesn't have to go for 5, but that's pretty much in that range. The judge could also say, listen, I'm going to depart downward from the guidelines, the federal sentencing guidelines, and give him less time. But remember, unlike state time, where here in Colorado, it's all fake. If you get 20 years on a violent crime, you're going to be parole eligible in about 5. That's not how it works in the federal system. You get 2 years in the federal system, you're going to serve just about 2 years. So that's real. And I think he goes first. I don't think that Marshawn, no matter how much money he contributes to the Biden administration or doesn't, I don't think he's going to put Trump in prison. That would be horrible for America and not justice.
George, what do you think about going after political opponents using law? I mean, part of me is like, well, I guess Hunter Biden filled out a form incorrectly. I'm sorry he uses drugs and he purchased a weapon when he was using drugs. But I'm not sitting here going, yes, we got him. All right, Joe Biden, you're put in a tough spot. I don't want to live in America where people's kids are being prosecuted regularly or political opponents are being prosecuted regularly. This today is not a day I'm celebrating because Hunter Biden got found guilty.
Well, one, I'm happy to hear that, Jeff. I'm in the same boat here. And I think for people that are bemoaning the Trump case and cheering the Biden case, there's a bit of hypocrisy there. What we should agree upon is this, and I wrote a column on this in the Gazette last week, and that is neither of these cases would have been brought forward and prosecuted but for who the people are. And that's not the way our system is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be about who you are. It's supposed to be about what you did. And the question I raised in the Gazette article was, listen, if Donald Trump had lost in 2016, does anybody believe Alvin Bragg brings this charge in 2024? If Donald Trump had just simply disappeared after his loss in 2020 and left gracefully, is there anyone on the planet Earth who thinks Alvin Bragg would have brought these charges in 2024? And the same thing for Hunter Biden. If Hunter Biden was Joe Q lunch pail, does anybody think that years later, the federal government would have ginned up these charges against him in this way? And I think the answer across the board to all those is no. And that is the thing you and I should be concerned about. Is that is lawfare, not what happened, but who did it.
Talking with George Brauchler, he's a candidate for district attorney in Judicial District 23 here in Colorado. Last question. What are you hearing from people as you're knocking doors? What's the top issue they are looking for their district attorney to deliver on?
It's such an important question, man. Here's what you get a ton. First off, once they get past the, I know that name, or I've voted for you before, or yes, I remember these cases. Then you say, well, what would you want to know from a guy who wants to be your DA? Some people just don't have an answer. They're like, I don't know. You know, are you going to lock up the bad guys? No joke, that question. Yes, of course. But there's a lot of immigration questions, And there are a lot of other questions about what are we going to do about judges that don't send people to prison. Those are probably, if I had to rank order them, those would be two of the top issues that show up.
George Brauchler, candidate for district attorney in Colorado's 23rd district. That includes how many counties? Elbert County, is it Douglas County as well?
Elbert, Lincoln, and Douglas. It's
Elbert,
the
Lincoln,
three
Douglas.
LED right there. And by the way, just so that everyone's clear, and I want to make it clear, happy to come back on anytime to talk with either my opponent or RMGO, just whatever it is. Let's have the conversation and let the public decide.
George willing to take direct questions, even from mailers that are targeting him. Dagna, on the other hand, has said she's done with this show, not willing to come on
She has
anymore.
other priorities.
So,
That's okay.
So, George, I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for
anytime.
taking the direct questions.
Hey, one other thing. I'm not joking. Stop being awesome on the show here, because I can't stop hearing from other people how great your show is. And then that awkward moment when they remember I was the guy that preceded you. And they're like, oh, it's so good. Oh, your show was good too. You know, I mean, that's tough.
Well, to that point, we had a good friend of ours the other day that visited our house, was out for a barbecue, said, I used to listen to George, and then I gave you guys a chance, and now I've fallen in love with Billy. So
And the thing is, the thing is there that Jeff isn't telling you, George, is the fact that was about 2 hours into the free tequila shots.
Yeah, that's right. George, thank you so much.
Thanks
Again, breaking news. Hunter Biden found guilty on all 3 charges related to the gun trial, essentially filling out a form illegally when he purchased a firearm or federal form by checking the box he was not drug addicted, when in fact he was.
What do you think the odds are that he was drug addicted when he was filling out the form?
I think he was listening to the
100%.
testimony when
Yes.
this dude was smoking crack every 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
My goodness. What's your reactions on that? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the 710KNUS app. Hunter Biden being found guilty. Give us your reactions. I want to talk to you about advanced hair restoration. Summer is a time to feel and look your best, but I'm not talking about your abs or your tan. Guys, I'm talking about your hair. Restore that bald spot, reverse your receding hairline, and add volume to thinning during Advanced Hair's once yearly summer savings event. Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and they guarantee your new hair will grow. There's absolutely no one I trust more than Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. Take advantage of your flexible summer calendar and get the most hair for your dollar. Imagine that top on your convertible down and you're just driving through the mountains and hair just flowing. Oh, be awesome. Take advantage of your flexible summer calendar. Advanced Hair's summer sales event is on for a limited time. So get the details and schedule your free consultation today. 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment. Life-changing results with Advanced Hair. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Check out the incredible before and afters and take advantage of their best offer ever. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. We'll get to your calls and texts. And we've got Ted Harvey coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. After 8 months of fighting in Gaza, the United Nations Security Council has adopted a resolution supporting a ceasefire. The US-led proposal is a 3-phase plan to end the fighting, return the remaining hostages, and rebuild Gaza. 14 of the 15 council members gave their support, with just Russia abstaining. It comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Egypt and Israel as global pressure for a permanent ceasefire mounts. Some undocumented migrants could soon be put on the fast track to US citizenship. According to multiple reports, President Biden is mulling a policy that would provide protected legal status to undocumented migrants married to US citizens. No official decision has been made, but it would be the latest attempt to address immigration, considered by many as one of President Biden's greatest political vulnerabilities heading into the November election. Apple's Siri assistant is getting an AI boost. Thanks to a partnership with ChatGPT, iPhones and other Apple products will be equipped with greater artificial intelligence capabilities from later this year. Apple Chief Executive Tim Cook said the development would take their products to new heights. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Breaking news coming in. Hunter Biden found guilty on all 3 counts. It'll be interesting to see if he's sent to jail now. And how will President Biden respond? Will he pardon his son or let him go sit in jail? Maybe it's a good thing for Hunter. He needs to sober up a little bit now.
Yeah, that's
sorry. No more crack. He was smoking crack in 20-minute increments.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And wasted all his money on prostitutes.
Yeah, and then thought he was an artist. Oh, Jesus. Okay. The other part, though, I like the conversation we had with George. Thank you. Thank you. When you're doing drugs, you think you're an artist. You're like, okay, great. I appreciate the conversation George just had with us about the difficulty it is as a father versus the position, and how hard it is in a father when you have the ability to get out of jail free. You've got that card in your back pocket. But
and I
is
don't
that
think,
the role
and I
where
don't
you
think
are?
a lot of people would blame him either. But if you feel like it's really important for him to sober up, then that makes sense. Let's go to Ted Harvey. Ted Harvey's joining the Jeff and Bill show. He's a member of the Colorado GOP Central Committee. This organization's likely going to face a call to meet with Dave Williams to determine whether or not he should resign. Ted, thanks so much for being on the program.
Yeah, thank you. Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on.
Ted, what is this all about? What is Nancy Pelosi and others about? They're saying now about a dozen counties are calling for Dave Williams to resign. Can you give us a little insight to what's going on here?
Well, Dave sent out an email arguing that the Republican Party should be standing up against the radical homosexual agenda that's trying to groom our kids down to kindergarten and sexualize our kids and put boys in the bathrooms and girls' bathrooms and boys into women's sports. And he thinks that with the Pride Month, June being Pride Month, that the Republican Party needs to step up and push up back against these radical efforts of the Marxist homosexual agenda that's trying to destroy our kids and destroy our families.
Now, Nancy said that this was really just the straw that broke the camel's back. It's been Dave's mismanagement of the party. It's been him endorsing the president in the presidential primary, requiring candidates to fill out the forms and questionnaires, and then endorsing in local races as well. That he's essentially mismanaging the Colorado Republican Party, and that this email was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What say you?
Well, I think that the Republican Party for the last 20 years has failed miserably to succeed in pushing forward the conservative Republican agenda. And there's a reason why we are in the super minority in the House today, and we're one vote away from that in the Senate. Dave was elected to shake things up and try to push forward a conservative agenda. And he was elected to do that. And I think what we're seeing is the party of the establishment that has failed our party for 20 years, has always been in control. And now they're gnashing their teeth, pushing back and trying to discredit Dave in a desperate effort to take back control.
Do you think they have the votes to oust him?
I don't think they have the votes to bring it forward, much less to oust him.
Interesting. Tell us, folks, a little bit about the process.
Well, I'm not an expert on it, but I believe you have to get 25% of the Central Committee to sign the petition to bring it up for a vote. I don't think they're going to get that 25%. And then when you bring it up, you're going to have to get 50% plus one. And I can assure you the vast majority of the larger county bonus members that are part of the Central Committee in Douglas County, and I'm being one of those members, will be there to support Dave. If anything, I'm going to carry a competing resolution to say, Dave, run again after you become the next congressman in the 5th Congressional District.
There's so many different angles on this. One was my critique that really you're going to try to force the ousting of the chairman of the Republican Party based upon pride. Like that just seems like you're on the using an issue that seems to be galvanizing conservatives against the kind of radical LGBT.
You look at most of his critics in my county, in Douglas County, are running around the county right now with petitions in hand, getting signatures to put on the ballot a prohibition of having opposite sex individuals in opposite sex bathrooms and having males playing in girls' sports. Those people are literally at every single meeting that I go to carrying those petitions, but they're also the ones saying Dave needs to resign because he's pushing publicly as the chair the very same issue that they are, saying that the radical homosexual agenda is trying to sexualize our kids and redefined what the definition of a girl is and what a woman is.
Now, do you think Dave went over the line, though, by essentially equating anybody in the LGBT community with pedophiles?
He didn't do that. He said the radical left that is trying to groom our kids and the failure of society to push back and defend our kids and defend their innocence and defend Western civilization is wrong. And he boldly stood up and said he's going to push back, and I applaud him for doing that.
So do you think there is room within the Republican Party for the log cabins in the LGBTQ community?
There is room in the Republican Party for everybody that doesn't want to groom kids and sexualize kids and try to change the definition of what a girl is and what a woman is.
Now, Dave's role as chairman of the Colorado Republican Party is premised on the idea that he is going to win more seats for Republicans. Let's say come June 25th, he doesn't win his primary. Do you think Dave should step down as chairman?
Absolutely not. Like I just said, I'll run a resolution asking him to continue on and run again.
So, but help me square the circle here. He is charged with winning races. He didn't win his own race. Should we trust him to win other races then?
Well, that's like saying Ken Buck should have resigned being in Congress when he didn't win, when he lost. We got a super minority in the House and almost super minority in the Senate and lost the U.S. Senate seat. There's a lot of circumstances outside of your control, especially when the establishment is spending almost $2 million in the 5th Congressional District to make sure Dave Williams does not become the next congressman there.
I think that's a fair point. So you don't think this is going to vote? You don't think if it does, he's going to be voted out? So is this just a continued effort in the Civil War? And how do we as Republicans get past this Civil War that's taking place in the Republican Party?
Well, I think the most important thing is for conservative grassroots Coloradoans to rise up, get involved in the political process, run for bonus members to the state central committee, run as chairs, vice chairs, and secretaries of their respective counties, and take over the party and continue to remove these the failed establishment part of our party that continues to lose elections year after year and divide our party the way we've seen this week with the way Nancy has gone off after Dave.
Now, Ted Harvey joining Jeff and Bill this morning. We're talking about the move to remove, that's a weird way to put it, but to remove Dave Williams from the Colorado chair position. He's in the Colorado GOP Central Committee. Ted, you talked about the continual losses inside of elections. Does Dave Williams' position or this email win the Republican Party any votes?
Definitely it does. I think the majority of normal, rational Americans and Coloradoans everywhere do not believe we should be grooming, sexualizing kindergartners. And I don't believe that, I think that the majority of them don't believe that we should have opposite sex people in opposite sex bathrooms, and we should be having boys in girls sports. I think that builds the coalition of common sense Americans into the Republican Party.
Now, Ted, I'm going to interrupt you there. I'm going to interrupt you there for a second. You've used this word a couple of times, and you've said grooming. Can you define that for me? How are you using grooming in this context?
If you are teaching kindergartners, first graders, second graders about human sexuality, you are grooming kids into, you are sexualizing kids. And I don't care whether you're doing.
Explain that to me. How is it? How if you're explaining sexual orientation, or how someone could be sexually oriented, or the fact that there could be gay people? How is that sexualizing kids?
I don't think you should be discussing it. I don't think you should be discussing heterosexual sex.
No. Hold on. You just said heterosexual sex. Wait, sir. You just said heterosexual sex. You've jumped to a description of an act. I talked about the identifier.
And that's what they're talking about when they're talking about identifier.
No.
Yes, they are.
No.
See,
they're not.
This is why Dave's position and God-fearing Americans' positions is right, and why we're going to grow the party is because of that argument right there. You think that it is appropriate to be talking about homosexual behavior and heterosexual behavior to kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and we don't. And we want to have that fight. Let's have that
Ted,
fight.
you're making an
Let's go to the
assumption.
American
Again, you're making an
and go to
assumption
the
there,
ballot
Ted, that
box,
I didn't say.
have
I
that
never advocated that we discuss how people have sex to first graders, second graders, or third graders. You've assumed
Yes, you
that.
are.
No, I have not. You're the one that is assuming it is being taught. Can you show me? Excuse me, Ted.
If
Can
you're
you show me
talking about-
anywhere
No,
in the first?
I'm not going to excuse you. If you're talking about sexual orientation, by definition, you have to be talking about sexual behavior.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do. How would you discuss it?
A person that is heterosexual is attracted to someone that's the opposite sex. A person that is homosexual or gay is attracted to someone that is the same sex.
In what way are they attracted? In what way are they attracted?
They find them cute. That's it. And at that age, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing, Ted. You need to show me, Ted. Can you show me? No, Ted. I listen to you. Ted, I listen to you. Can you show me anywhere in the first, second, or third grade curriculum in Colorado where they are explicitly discussing how sex takes place between heterosexuals or between homosexuals? Can you point to that curricula?
If they are pushing sexual orientation and discussing sexual orientation, regardless of whether it's heterosexual or homosexual, they by definition have to be talking about what that means.
No, they don't. And can you show me the curricula? Can you answer my question? Can you show me the curricula in first, second, and third grade in which they are explicitly discussing how sex is done? That's your assumption.
No, Bill, I've got a question on this, and then I want to hear Ted's response. Isn't just putting a pride flag up essentially that type of promotion to kids?
What do you mean? Tell me, what do you mean by that?
So you put a pride flag up, you're talking about sexual activity.
Okay, if a teacher hangs a pride flag in a first grade classroom, explain to me how they are going to discuss with the class how people have sex.
Because
square that circle for me.
That's what it's all about. Like to Ted's point, this is about attraction.
Okay, so
what
I'm
when
saying
you put
is,
up an American flag, you're not talking about sexual activity. But when you put up a pride flag, you sure are.
Is attraction the same thing as sexual activity?
Yeah, because you're talking about it towards something.
No, Ted and Jeff. Ted, Jeff, Ted. Nope, Ted, Jeff. It is not. And here's the reason why. You both can remember the first person you had a crush on, right? Were you sexually active?
Not all the way, but you were on the spectrum.
See, no. Hang on a sec.
You were on the spectrum towards it.
Hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. There was an attraction, and and you were attracted to the person, but you weren't discussing the actual sex. And here's the issue. No. Here's the issue.
Yes, I
If
was.
you're Ted,
Yes,
you weren't.
I was.
You were not discussing the actual sex with someone. No, Ted,
Bill,
you weren't.
I'll give Bill. You get 30 seconds, and then Ted. Okay, go ahead.
This is the reason why. Is because if a first grader, second grader, third grader came to you and talked to you about the fact that they had a crush on someone else in their class, you don't go, yes, you have a crush. And you know why? Because eventually you're going to take this and do this with them and have babies. No, that is not, and that's not contained anywhere in the curricula. But you are assuming a grooming status. You are assuming the sexual conversation takes place, and it doesn't.
All right, Ted,
you come to a wrong conclusion.
You get the final word because we're running out of time. Ted, go ahead.
Yes, by definition, that is exactly what you are doing. And we should not be talking about heterosexual sex in the classroom for public school age kids, and we should not be talking about it for homosexual sex either. And the fact that the left is arguing that we should be is why Dave Williams is correct in bringing this fight to the table today, because the Republican Party has been falling back into the fetal position for decades, saying, don't call me a homophobe, don't call me a homophobe if I say that this is wrong. And it's got to the point now where the left is saying we can have drag queen shows in public schools and public libraries and bring kids to be exposed to men doing all kinds of outrageous things. And we can have boys and girls bathrooms and girls locker rooms, and we can have boys and girls sports, because the common sense Americans have been afraid to stand up and say that is wrong for too long. And finally, Dave Williams and many others are standing up and saying, enough is enough. We're going to say this is wrong and this is evil.
Ted Harvey, member of the Colorado.
That,
Ted, we're just out of time. I appreciate it. Ted Harvey, member of the Colorado GOP Central Committee, weighing in on the effort to remove Dave Williams from his post as chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. Ted, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. And just a reminder, sexual orientation has three components: emotional, romantic, and actual sex. There are three components to that orientation. We don't discuss all of them with kids the first time they have a crush.
Or any of them.
Well, I know, but
we shouldn't.
It is flatly offensive for us to roll in the idea of sexual grooming in this. This is ridiculous.
There's a lot to consider when it comes to higher education. The college experience can either build a student's faith up with knowledge and understanding or tear it down. At Colorado Christian University, they aim to strengthen their students' Christian faith because they believe that everything depends on it. CCU's academic and student development programs cultivate a deep and enduring faith that affirms the authority of Scripture and embraces Christ as the authentic center of life. What does this look like week to week at CCU? All students are placed in a discipleship group freshman year. Their campus ministries department creates space for spiritual formation through weekly chapels, service opportunities, and international missions. Every student graduates with an emphasis in biblical studies taught by expert faculty in their fields, Old New Testament, theology, and church history. At CCU, they consider faith the most important thing a student can take with them into their future career. To learn more and apply, go to ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. Well, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Breaking news, Hunter Biden guilty on all 3 federal gun charges. He's probably going to maybe face some prison time. Who knows? Chris Murray saying that this might be the exit for Joe Biden out of this race. We'll have to see. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.